Chapter 809. Shinja slowly opened his eyes and glanced at him sharply. His voice was cold. Do you know her better than I do? Zay's face was expressionless. At least I have two sisters. Shinja was very familiar with Zay's two weird sisters. He silently lit 2 candles for Zay in his heart and then signaled him to continue speaking with his eyes. Women are animals who say one thing and mean another. They say they don't want you, but they really want you. They say they don't want you to care, but in fact, they want you to silently help them settle everything. They act like they don't care, but in fact, they want you to chase after them and value them. Zay's taciturn image was completely different. He endlessly imparted his experience to Shinja. When he said, of course, this only represents a portion of women. Shinja's brows were so tightly furrowed that they could almost squeeze a mosquito to death. Obviously, with his single-celled emotional intelligence, those women who say one thing and mean another must have nothing better to do. Couldn't he just say it clearly? Zay glanced at his expression and could guess his thoughts. He slowly said, according to my observation, Miss G doesn't belong to that type of woman. Shinja's eyebrows twitched. His eyes were full of murderous intent. Then why did you talk so much nonsense? Zay was intimidated by Ji Yunchu's murderous glare. He coughed dryly and continued, Miss G is a very prideful person. Even if she doesn't want you to meddle in her affairs, you can do it secretly. One day, she will realize how good you are, young master. Shinja pinched his eyebrows. You can shut up now. After living for so many years, this was the first time he felt that he was not capable enough. It was imperative to buy a few books on female psychology. Early the next morning, Ji Yuqi leisurely dressed up and went downstairs with Lin Yushi's help. Jiang Tianhao stood by the roadside. He was wearing a beige coat and holding a breakfast in his hand. His handsome figure attracted the attention of many girls. The girls who knew him greeted him warmly. He smiled gently and distantly until Ji Yuqi's figure appeared. The smile on his face was like a blooming spring flower, almost blinding his admirers. Yuqi, is your leg better? His moist eyes were filled with concern. Ji Yuqi stroked her hair and smiled. I'm much better now. Senior, why are you here? It's not convenient for you to walk, so I bought breakfast for you. As he spoke, Jiang Tianhao's gaze fell on Lin Yushi. He smiled apologetically. If I had known that classmate Lin would be here, I would have bought an extra set. Lin Yushi's expression was indifferent. It's okay. Ever since Yuqi asked her to help take photos and post posts to slander Jiang Tianhao, she knew that Yuqi did not like Jiang Tianhao. Of course, she did not like him either. She always felt that this man was too greedy and did not have good intentions. Otherwise, she would not have helped Yuqi. Sensing the other party's coldness, Jiang Tianhao felt a little uncomfortable. Ji Yuqi smiled and helped him out. Yushi, go and have breakfast first. I'll see you in the classroom. Lin Yushi nodded. Jiang Tianhao naturally took over Lin Yushi's position and held Ji Yuqi's arm. She felt embarrassed and struggled. It's okay. I can walk on my own. She pretended to be shy and glanced at the people staring at them. It's better to be careful. A sprain can be serious. Don't aggravate your condition. Jiang Tianhao insisted on supporting her and whispered gently. He did not care about the people around them. Ji Yuqi was helpless and shy. The atmosphere was a little awkward for a moment. At this moment, a white BMW stopped in front of them. Ji Bowen pushed the door open and greeted her with a concerned expression. Yuqi, how's your ankle? Sister, are you okay? You didn't come home last night. I was worried to death. Ji Yunhan also jumped out of the car. Dad, I'm fine. I just accidentally sprained my ankle. Why are you all here? Ji Yuqi looked at her concerned relatives and felt warm in her heart. Last night, she pretended to sprain her ankle because it was inconvenient for her to go home, so she casually made up an excuse. She did not expect that her father and brother would still be worried. Sister Chi-Chi, why didn't you tell us that you sprained your ankle? If my friend didn't tell me, we would still be hiding it in the valley. Yizisu's delicate figure also got out of the car. Ji Yuqi immediately understood. So this was what had happened. Jiang Tianhao had been showing off his love for Yizisu in front of the dormitory early in the morning, and Yizisu had immediately led her father and the others here. She must have wanted her father to see the sweet love between Jiang Tianhao and herself. Sure enough, Ji Bowen had already noticed Jiang Tianhao, who was holding Ji Yuqi's arm. His face immediately darkened and he said in a deep voice, "This student, you are." Ji Yunhan also noticed Jiang Tianhao. He snorted and pushed Jiang Tianhao to the side. He quickly supported Ji Yuqi and then supported his sister as if they were facing a great enemy. He took a few steps away from Jiang Tianhao. "Han, what are you doing?" Ji Yuqi pretended to be dissatisfied and muttered a few words in a low voice. She then looked at Jiang Tianhao worriedly. An unnatural expression flashed across Jiang Tianhao's handsome face, but he quickly calmed down and smiled politely. "Hello, Mr. Ji. My name is Jiang Tianhao. I'm Yuqi's senior." Jiang Tianhao. Ji Bowen frowned and thought for a moment. This name sounded a little familiar. Uncle Ji. Yizisu walked to Ji Bowen and reminded him considerately. It was Senior Ji Bowen who saved Sister Chi-Chi from the lake. Ji Yuqi pouted. "Dad, I ran into a criminal last night. Fortunately, Senior Jiang came in time. We have to thank him properly." Ji Bowen felt a lingering fear when he heard that his daughter had run into a criminal. He also had a good impression of Jiang Tianhao's courageous actions. His expression softened a lot. "Student Jiang, I'm very grateful that you've saved Chi-Chi twice. It's Chi-Chi's birthday in a few days. I'd like to invite you to the Ji family as a guest. You have to do me the honor." Jiang Tianhao smiled. His attitude was neither servile nor overbearing. "You're too serious, Mr. Ji. I only did what I could. It's my honor to be able to attend Yuqi's birthday party." Ji Bowen looked at him deeply and didn't say anything else. He reminded Ji Yuqi a few more times, then asked Ji Yunhan to leave. One of them had to attend a meeting at the company, while the other had to go to school. Neither of them could be delayed. Before Ji Yunhan got into the car, he glared at Jiang Tianhao warningly. He didn't like that man. He hated that man very much. Anyone who tried to steal his sister was a jerk. In less than a day, the news that Jiang Tianhao and Ji Yuqi were dating spread throughout the school. There were even more ridiculous rumors that Ji Bowen rushed to school to see what his future son-in-law looked like. Ji Yuqi sneered when she heard these rumors. Lin Yushi looked at her and asked curiously, "Why do you hate Jiang Tianhao so much?" Ji Yuqi raised her eyebrows. "Because he's eating from the bowl and looking at the pot. He thinks that he can play the daughter of the Ji family like a fiddle. Let him play then." Lin Yushi felt deeply. He's indeed a jerk. Jiang Tianhao, whom they called a bad guy, was still taking good care of Ji Yuqi as usual. When he accidentally mentioned the rumors on campus, he guiltily expressed that he wanted to clarify it with everyone. Ji Yuqi smiled gently. "Senior, rumors stop with the wise. We don't have to take them seriously." Jiang Tianhao immediately looked hurt and affectionate. "Yuqi, I actually hope that those rumors are true." Ji Yuqi replied to him with a shy smile. Jiang Tianhao was slightly startled. Then, his eyebrows curved as he quietly held her hand. Her fingers moved slightly, but she did not pull them back. In less than an hour, photos of the two of them holding hands and looking at each other sweetly were exposed on the school forum. It confirmed the rumors that they were dating. After this matter was made public, Tang Feng and Gu Fifan went to talk to Ji Yuqi at the same time. Ji Yuqi played Tai Chi and neither admitted nor denied it. However, her serene smile still triggered the two of them. Tang Feng returned depressed. He clearly did not like Yuqi, but when he heard that she had a boyfriend, he felt as if someone had snatched away his treasure. Yes, he felt humiliated and indignant. Ji Yuqi was his fiancée. Which fiancé would feel good after being cuckolded? Gu Fifan's eyes were malicious. He believed that Ji Yuqi did not like Jiang Tianhao. It must be Jiang Tianhao, that despicable person, who caused this matter to spread. Damn it, he would not let that bastard off. Thanks to Yi Zisu's secret activities, the Ji family also found out about this matter. Ji Bowen immediately flew into a rage. He had never been so angry at his daughter before. Chen Tingfang pretended to hold his arm and tried to calm him down. Ji Yunhan wanted to put in a good word for his sister, but was secretly tugged by his sister. He cleverly kept his mouth shut. Ji Bowen glared at the pale Yuqi and said sternly, "Follow me to the study." Ji Yuqi followed him into the study. As soon as the door was closed, tears rolled down her face. She pitifully called out, "Dad." No matter how angry Ji Bowen was, he could not help but soften when he saw his daughter's pitiful appearance. He sighed and said, "Chi-Chi, break up with Jiang Tianhao immediately. You can't have any contact with him." Seeing the blue veins on her father's neck throbbing with anger, Ji Yuqi didn't feel good either. However, for the sake of her plan, she had to follow the script. With tears in her eyes, she asked, "Dad, why? Why can't I like Jiang Tianhao?" Ji Bowen pressed the space between his eyebrows. Last time at school, he could see that Jiang Tianhao and Yuqi's relationship was not ordinary. However, he did not adopt a high-pressure policy. Instead, he planned to observe slowly to see if the young man was reliable. At the same time, he also sent people to investigate Jiang Tianhao's background. After many twists and turns, the result was that Jiang Tianhao was actually Jiang Tianhao's son. If Jiang Tianhao knew what happened that year, then it was impossible for him not to know who Yuqi's father was. However, he actually had no grudges with Yuqi. This made Ji Bowen suspect that he had other motives. If Jiang Tianhao did not know what happened that year and only found out the truth after he married Yuqi, then how would he treat Yuqi? Ji Bowen did not dare to imagine. Ad Xinwu 799. Chapter 8:10. No matter what the situation was, Ji Bowen would not allow his daughter to have any contact with Jiang Tianhao. However, Ji Bowen did not intend to tell Yuqi about the grudges of the previous generation. He thought for a long time and said in a low voice, "Chi-Chi, the gap between you and Jiang Tianhao is too big. You won't be happy together. Listen to me and break up with him. You and Tang Feng are a match made in heaven." Ji Yuqi was no longer the naive little girl in her previous life. She could tell that her father was lying. He must have something that he could not say. Now, she could not ask him directly. She could only pretend to be wronged and cry. "Dad, how can you despise the poor and love the rich? You were a poor boy who had nothing, but later, you built a career with your own efforts. I believe that Tianhao can do the same." Ji Bowen could not help but think of the situation when he started his business. He also thought of the things that Jiang Tianhao had done. His face darkened again and he said firmly, "Chi-Chi, I'm doing this for your own good. Although Jiang Tianhao looks very good on the surface, he is actually very shrewd. I'm afraid that you will be deceived by him." Ji Yuqi bit her lip. There was some hesitation on her beautiful face. Ji Bowen knew that his daughter was struggling in her heart. He put his arm around her shoulder and said gently, "Chi-Chi, I'm more experienced than you, and I can see people more accurately. Jiang Tianhao is not someone you can control. Listen to me and don't contact him anymore. You grew up with Tang Feng and have a good relationship with him. I've discussed with your grandpa Tang. We'll take advantage of the birthday party to settle your relationship. What do you think? No, Ji Yuqi said in a panic. Dad, I'm not suitable for brother Tang Feng. He doesn't like me, and I don't like him. Dad, give me some time. I'll deal with my relationship with Jiang Tianhao. Don't force me to get engaged to brother Tang Feng, okay? Although the engagement between the Tang and Ji families had been set long ago, it was only a verbal agreement and had never been announced to the public. Ji Bowen originally planned to announce the engagement and cut off the relationship between Yuqi and Jiang Tianhao. However, Yuqi said that there was no romantic relationship between her and Tang Feng, so he had to change his mind. After all, he did not want his daughter to be unhappy. Ji Bowen thought for a long time. He looked into Yuqi's eyes and said slowly, Chi-Chi, I won't force you. I hope you don't let me down. Ji Yuqi nodded heavily and apologized in her heart. Dad, I'm sorry. I've made you sad again. But please believe me. I'll handle it well. Ji Yuqi's 21st birthday party would be held in the Ji family's villa. Many celebrities were invited. Chen Tingfang was very busy. In order to show her benevolence as a stepmother, she had personally written all the invitations. In addition, she had also meticulously prepared a gift for Ji Yuqi that she would never forget for the rest of her life. Yi Zixu, on the other hand, was busy scheming with Jiang Tianhao. They were trying to figure out a way to seal the relationship between Jiang Tianhao and Ji Yuqi so that Ji Bowen would have no choice but to admit it. Ji Yuqi stayed in Ji Yunhan's room. Although her brother was only in his teens, he was a computer genius. She asked him to create a mobile phone virus. As long as he hacked into someone's phone, he could listen in on other people's calls. In less than 2 days, the kid created the virus and sent it to Yi Zixu and Jiang Tianhao's phones in the form of pictures. All their phone conversations fell into Ji Yuqi's ears. As night fell, the Ji family's garden was brightly lit. People dressed up walked through the luxurious hall. From time to time, the sound of wine glasses clinking could be heard. The older generation gathered together to talk about their careers or family, while the younger generation gathered in 2s and 3s to play. The music in the hall suddenly stopped, and a beam of light shone on the spiral staircase. Everyone's eyes were attracted by the woman who slowly walked down the stairs. She walked leisurely, wearing a red strapless evening dress that was perfectly tailored and ironed to accentuate her graceful curves. Her face was bright and beautiful, and her phoenix eyes held a trace of a smile. Under the luxurious crystal lights, she was like a red peony in full bloom. She was so beautiful that it could cause the downfall of a country, but she did not feel vulgar. She was born with a noble aura. She was like an ancient empress who was the mother of the world. That honor and bearing made all the women present feel timid. Yi Zixu stood beside her. She had a completely different style. She wore a white evening dress that made her white skin look like it could be broken with a flick of a finger. Her delicate eyebrows were slightly smiling, and her temperament was elegant and refined. She was like a quietly blooming hibiscus. If one only looked at her dress, she was also very beautiful. She was so beautiful that she was fresh and refined. However, when she was compared to Ji Yuqi, she seemed a little petty. She did not have the domineering aura of a peony. Yi Zixu also knew this, but she didn't care. Her goal tonight was to serve as a foil to Ji Yuqi. The higher Ji Yuqi was raised, the harder Ji Yuqi would fall. However, when she saw Jiang Tianhao staring at Ji Yuqi with infatuation, her high spirits suddenly fell to the bottom like a roller coaster. No, it can't be. Tianhao can't fall in love with Ji Yuqi. It's just an act. Chen Tingfang held Ji Bowen's arm, and the two of them appeared in front of everyone lovingly. Ji Bowen gave a speech and thanked everyone for attending Yuqi's birthday party. Then, he announced that he would set up a foundation in Yuqi's name to help disabled children. For a moment, the applause was like thunder. Everyone present knew that Ji Bowen loved his daughter dearly. Of course, they had to cater to his taste. They all praised Yuqi for being beautiful and sensible. Ji Bowen was happy inside, but on the surface, he had to say a few words of modesty. Ji Bowen led the three children to meet their relatives and friends. The atmosphere was just right. Suddenly, the door was pushed open and a handsome figure strode in. He was wearing an expensive black suit, which perfectly complemented his impressive figure. A few strands of hair fell over his forehead, revealing a pair of charming phoenix eyes. His deep eyes were as beautiful as a lake in late autumn. He had a proud and upright nose and a sharp chin. His facial features were perfect like a god. He exuded the aura of a king who looked down on the world. As he walked forward, the crowd automatically parted to make a path for him. His gaze was focused on the female lead in the crowd. Even when the people around him greeted him, he did not respond. It was as if she was the only one in his world. Ji Yuqi was stunned. She did not expect Shinja to come. The Shin and Ji families were in different industries and had no personal relationship. She believed that her father did not invite anyone from the Shin family, but he came in such a high-profile manner. Was it because of her? While she was in a daze, Ji Bowen had already walked up to him and said with a smile, "Young Master Shin, what a rare guest." Shinja smiled faintly. "Uncle Ji is too polite. Just call me Shinja. Today is Yuqi's birthday. How can I not come?" Ji Bowen muttered in his heart. This young Master Shin rarely attended banquets. Moreover, the relationship between the Shin and Ji families was only a so-so. What was the meaning of this? Several thoughts flashed through Ji Bowen's mind, but the smile on his face did not change. He sighed and said, "Good, good. Heroes indeed come from the young. If I were like your father and had such a capable son, I would wake up smiling even in my sleep." Ji Yuqi was embarrassed. Father, the relationship between Shinjia and Shinjinhao was not as close as the outside world said. They could be said to be natural enemies. Aren't you just touching the pot that doesn't boil? She hurried forward and smiled as she stretched out her right hand. Young Master Shin, I'm very happy that you can come to my birthday banquet. Seeing that soft snow-white hand, Shinja's cold gaze softened. The corner of his lips curled up slightly. He elegantly bent down and gentlemanly picked up her right hand and gently kissed the back of her hand. His warm lips brushed against the back of her hand like a soft feather gently brushing across the surface of a lake, creating circles of ripples. Ji Yuqi's heart trembled. She only wanted to shake hands with him, but he actually kissed her hand in the Western way. His actions were elegant and gentlemanly. His eyes were clear and his expression was normal. No one suspected that he had other motives, but it still made the young women present jealous. They wished that the person who was kissed on the back of her hand was them. Yi Zissou looked at his handsome figure and was momentarily absent-minded. She was jealous of Ji Yuqi's good luck. Why was Ji Yuqi able to chat and laugh with those noble young masters at the banquet, while she could only serve as a foil to her? Why was even the young master of the richest family, the Shin family, looking at her in a new light? Yi Zissou was not reconciled. She hated it. Ji Yuqi was chatting with Tang Feng's grandmother, Madame Tang. She pretended to inadvertently look into the distance. Shinja was standing in the middle of a group of celebrities. He was like a noble king. Wherever he stood, he was incomparably dazzling, overshadowing the men around him. Even the female companions of those men were staring at him with eyes full of affection. Madame Tang was already a shrewd old woman. When Ji-Yuchi looked in Shinja's direction for the second time, she could not help but laugh and teased, "You and you were very close when you were young. Why are you so distant now that you've grown up? You didn't even speak much tonight." Ji-Yuchi was stunned, but she quickly reacted. Tang Feng was also standing around Shinja's circle. Granny Tang thought that she was peeking at Tang Feng. She pursed her lips and smiled, saying gently, "Granny Tang, don't make fun of me. No matter how old we are, Brother Tang Feng will always be my brother in my heart." Madame Tang's heart sank. Brother? How could he be her brother? Originally, they had agreed to announce the marriage between the Tang and Ji families at the birthday party, but Ji Bowen suddenly changed his mind. Could it be that Yuchi did not like Yu? Madame Tang's heart was in turmoil. Ji-Yuchi smiled and changed the topic at the right time. Madame Tang wanted to test the waters. A group of young boys and girls came to look for Yuchi, so she could only give up and say with a smile, "Yuchi, don't sit around with an old woman like me. Entertain your friends and have fun." Ji-Yuchi left with a smile. Madame Tang looked at her back as she walked away, then looked at her precious grandson, Tang Feng, who was handling the crowd with ease. She felt very upset. Yu once told her that he did not want to marry Yuchi. She thought that he was joking and did not take it to heart. She did not expect that the relationship between the two of them would become more and more distant. She decided to go home later and have a good talk with Tang Feng to see if there was any possibility between him and Yuchi. Come and see. Hongcha 866. Chapter 811. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. In the brightly lit garden, a handsome man in a black suit stared at the red wine stains on Ji-Yuchi's dress. He was chatting with his companions with a wine glass when he suddenly felt someone bump into his arm. The red wine in the glass spilled all over Miss Ji's dress. Ji-Yuchi glanced at the stains on her chest and abdomen and smiled. It's okay. She put the wine glass in her hand aside and glanced at her friends around her. She politely said goodbye. I'll go upstairs to change my clothes first. Enjoy yourselves. Jiang Tianhao was the first to come out and said warmly, Yuchi, do you need me to accompany you? Ji-Yuchi smiled. No need, senior. I'll be back soon. In the hall, Shinja was holding a glass of red wine and standing in the middle of a group of businessmen with a cold expression. He seemed to be listening carefully to their conversation, but in fact, his attention had been following Ji-Yuchi. Seeing her walk upstairs, he quietly glanced at a corner. Zhe, who was dressed in black and had no sense of presence, immediately followed her upstairs quietly. Ji-Yuchi came out after changing her clothes. She had just taken 2 steps when a tall figure blocked her way. She secretly looked at the man. He was handsome and had a sincere smile on his face. Unfortunately, his eyes betrayed him. They were full of ambition and calculation. Yuchi, do you remember me? I'm Chenifei, Zisu's cousin. Chenifei pretentiously brushed the hair in front of his forehead and raised his eyebrows handsomely. Ji-Yuchi smiled. So it's Chen Gongzi. Nice to meet you. What Chen Gongzi? Don't be so formal. You're Zisu's sister. You can call me cousin too. Chenifei stared at Ji-Yuchi with infatuation. She had changed into a black pearl tube dress and looked like a mermaid princess from the deep sea. She was dazzlingly beautiful. He couldn't help but reach out to touch her beautiful face. Ji-Yuchi's eyes flashed with disgust. She turned her face to avoid his fingers and smiled faintly. Cousin, what's the matter? Chenifei's bones softened when he heard her call him cousin. He retracted his hand and smiled. Yuchi cousin, I have something to talk to you about. Let's go to your room. Ji-Yuchi blushed and said shyly, it's not convenient. It's not inconvenient. What I want to say is very important. It has something to do with your boyfriend, Jiang. Chen's eyes were burning. Ji Yuqi was curious. How do you know about Jiang Tianhao? Chen Yifei raised his eyebrows. Have you forgotten that I'm also a student at Capital University? A friend of mine knows Jiang Tianhao. Speaking of which, I know him better than you. You don't want to be deceived by him, do you? Ji Yuqi bit her lips and seemed hesitant. Chen Yifei continued to fan the flames. Jiang Tianhao isn't a good person. If you don't want to hear it, I won't say it. Then, he turned and left. Wait a minute, Chen Yifei raised his eyebrows smugly and turned around with a concerned face. It's not convenient here. Let's go to your room. Ji Yuqi hesitated for a bit and said, let's go to the guest room. My room is too messy. Chen Yifei didn't object. His original goal was to go to the guest room next to the study. He knew that she was wary, so he purposely suggested going to her room so that she would say to go to the guest room. The Ji family's guest room was beautifully decorated. There were 2 pots of heather flowers on the windowsill. One was pink and the other was blue. It was very beautiful, but the smell wasn't that pleasant. Fortunately, the window was open, so the smell in the room wasn't strong. The fragrance of the flowers in the room was mixed with the smell of Chen Yifei's perfume. It smelled strange. Ji Yuqi suddenly felt a bit hot. She fanned herself with her hand and said impatiently, cousin, what are you trying to say? Chen Yifei saw that her cheeks were dyed with a faint layer of crimson, which made her look even more beautiful. He quietly curled his lips and said in a hoarse voice, cousin, I suddenly feel a little thirsty. Can you pour me a glass of water? There was a glass of water on the table. Ji Yuqi handed it to him and said anxiously, tell me after you finish drinking. It's so hot here. The smile in Chen Yifei's eyes deepened. He drank the tea in the cup and approached her step by step. When she was caught off guard, he suddenly reached out and hugged her in his arms. He lowered his head to kiss her. She was shocked and pushed him away in a flurry. Cousin, what are you doing? Chi, I like you. I like you very much. Give it to me. He held her in a daze, his hand stroking her body skillfully. He was secretly pleased with himself. With his superb skills and the effects of those aphrodisiacs, Ji Yuqi would definitely fall at his feet. Just as he was fantasizing, he suddenly felt a pain in the back of his head. His vision turned black and he fell to the ground. Ji Yuqi kicked him in disgust. Then she took out his phone from his trouser pocket and found Izisu's number. She sent a text, things have changed. Come to the guest room quickly. After sending the text, she grabbed Chen Yifei's body and threw him onto the bed. Then she covered his head and feet with the quilt. When Izisu received the text, she was hiding in a corner with Jiang Tianhao. When she felt the vibration of the phone, she reluctantly separated from him. Tianhao, cousin said that things have changed and he wants me to go to the guest room. I'll go up first. I'll let you know when I'm done. Izisu trusted Chen Yifei very much. When she heard that things had changed, she wanted to rush over immediately. Jiang Tianhao was different. He didn't trust anyone except himself. He suspected that there was a trap, so he stopped Izisu and said, let me go. If anything happens, I'll let you know. Okay. Izisu was vaguely unhappy. The door of the guest room was not locked. There was a gap. Jiang Tianhao pushed it gently and the door opened. However, the room was very dark. There was no light. He pressed the switch, but there was no response. He guessed that Chen Tingfang and the others might have done something to make it easier for Chen Yifei. Using the light from his phone, he could clearly see the situation in the room. The blanket on the bed was bulging high, so there should be 1 or 2 people lying inside. He tiptoed toward the bed. Just as he was about to lift the blanket to check, a hand suddenly reached out from under the blanket and slapped his phone to the ground. Then, it forcefully dragged him onto the bed. Yizisu was chatting with her friends, but she felt a little uneasy. Tianhao had been upstairs for a few minutes, but he still hadn't contacted her. Could it be that he liked Ji Yuqi and took the opportunity to make Ji Yuqi real? The more she thought about it, the more uneasy she felt. Her phone suddenly vibrated. She unlocked it and saw a message from Fei. "It's done. Come up alone." According to the original plan, after the matter was settled, Chen Tingfang and Yizisu would be responsible for taking the guests to the guest room. Although Yizisu didn't know why things had changed, she still chose to follow Fei's arrangement. Yizisu went upstairs alone. She walked to the door of the guest room. It was dark inside. She whispered Jiang Tianhao's name, but there was no response. She had to use the light of the phone to quietly rub the bed. She cursed in her heart. She didn't know what Fei and Jiang Tianhao were doing. She walked to the bed. Just as she was about to lift the quilt, a hand stretched out from under the bed and grabbed her ankle. She screamed in fright. The hand suddenly pulled hard, and she fell to the ground with a plop. She was in so much pain that she almost fainted. The hand pressed on a certain part of her waist, and all the strength in her body seemed to disappear. She had no strength to struggle. She could only let the person throw her on the bed. She seemed to be pressed against something hard and uncomfortable. She moved her body and wanted to escape. An arm suddenly wrapped around her waist and hugged her tightly. "Who are you? Let me go." Yizisu was anxious and scared. She was about to cry. What the hell was going on? The air was filled with the strange scent of heather flowers. Yizisu had experienced it before. She knew what the scent was like. It was the scent of a man's passion. Her mother said that the flowers had aphrodisiac effects, so they deliberately placed 2 pots in the guest room. But now, Yizisu regretted it. She was unknowingly bewitched by the scent of the flowers. Coupled with the burning body on top of her and the large hands rubbing against her sensitive parts, her heart was filled with desire. She really wanted to be loved by Tianhao. Yizisu couldn't help but hug the body on top of her. She called out in a daze, "Tianhao, I love you, Tianhao, cousin, mm. Aw. Cousin, you're so beautiful, so mesmerizing." The head on her chest affectionately sucked on her buds, and from time to time, a low gasp came from his mouth. Yizisu suddenly woke up. She was so scared that her heart almost stopped beating. She frantically pushed away the person on top of her. "No, no, cousin, it's me. I'm Zisu. We can't do it. Cousin. I like you so much." Fei felt that his body was about to explode. His mind was blank, and he could only rely on his instinct to tease the person on top of him. He wanted to make Ji Yuqi, that little slut, feel pleasure under his body and feel like dying. "Cousin, you can't do it. It's me. I'm Zisu." Feeling the hot and hard part squeezing between her legs, Yizisu's tears kept falling. Her rationality told her that she couldn't do it, but the scary thing was that her body actually wanted to be filled by that thing. No, no, how could she do this? She hated herself so much. But she didn't have the strength to refuse. Even her body was faintly anticipating it. Feeling that thing ready to go, Yizisu bit her lips in despair and cried bitterly. At this moment, she suddenly heard Jiang Tianhao's angry roar. "Bastard!" Then, with a bang, the man on top of her was kicked off the bed. Before Yizisu could breathe a sigh of relief, she heard the door open. A group of people appeared at the door. Click, the lights were turned on. At the door, Ji Bowen and Chen Tingfang were leading a group of banquet guests. These guests heard that Ji Bowen had collected several sets of very precious stamps, so they followed the host to the study to take a look. They didn't expect to hear screams and cries coming from the guest room in the corridor. Madame G immediately said that they should check it out. So, the door was opened, and the room was full of spring scenery. The second young miss of the G family, who was as pure and elegant as if she had walked out of a painting, was actually lying naked on the bed with a similarly naked man. And on the floor, there was another man who was completely naked as well. The young girls present covered their eyes and screamed at the same time. The older generation awkwardly turned their heads to avoid this erotic scene. Welfare, Hongcha 866. Chapter 812. Shenja walked at the end of the crowd. His cold eyes glanced slightly. After seeing what had happened, he withdrew his gaze and slowly retreated down the stairs. His slightly lowered eyelashes hid the faint smile in his eyes. So that's how it is. Chi, well done. The scream came from Yizisu. She angrily pulled the quilt and covered her body. She wanted to find a hole to hide in. Why did this happen? Was she tricked by that bitch Ji Yuchi again? Lying on the floor with his white buttocks exposed, Chenifei was still in a state of delirium. He breathed in the fragrance of the heather and drank the water mixed with aphrodisiac. Even if he hugged a sow now, he could still treat it as a fairy and have sex with it. Ji Bowen looked at the lewd scene in the room and was so angry that all the blood in his body rushed to his head. His eyes burned with anger and his lips trembled. However, he was a legend in the business world and was not someone to be trifled with. He still had some rationality left to salvage the situation. He said in a deep voice, Han, please invite the guests to my study. Ji Yunhan had been hiding behind the crowd for a long time. When he heard this, he calmly invited everyone to move forward. His calm and graceful manner made many people secretly nod their heads. Among these people, there were many who wanted to stay and watch the show. However, they had to leave some face for the Ji family. Therefore, they acted as if nothing had happened and happily went to the study to look at the stamps. Chen Tingfang was so angry that she wanted to slap Yizisu. However, Yizisu was her only daughter and her hope for the rest of her life. Even if she was disappointed, she could not watch her daughter being destroyed. She could only force a smile. Tianhao, you look so calm. I did not stop you from dating Zisu. How can you be so careless? Ifei, you know that he will go crazy when he is drunk, but he still dares to drink so much. Housekeeper, call 2 people to help Chen Xiaoye upstairs to sober up. Jiang Tianhao was unconscious after being put on the bed. He was in a daze when he suddenly heard Yizisu crying. Then he found that Yizisu was under Chenifei's body. He was so angry that he cursed, bastard, and then kicked Chenifei out of the bed. Until he was caught in bed by a large group of people, his brain was running fast. He did not know what went wrong and caused the current situation. He didn't know what to do, but after hearing Chen Tingfang's words, he immediately understood. His face revealed an ashamed expression as he mumbled, Auntie, we drank a little and couldn't control ourselves for a moment. Ji Bowen was so angry that he almost set the room on fire. Jiang Tianhao, that bastard, was lying through his teeth. He was Yuqi's boyfriend. How could he get together with Zisu without breaking up with her? How could he have sex with her? How could he do that? How could he do that? How could he? As for that bastard Chenifei, he was even worse. Ji Bowen did not believe Chen Tingfang's words of drunkenness. That bastard kept saying, cousin. Was he not referring to Yizisu? Chenifei actually dared to covet his own cousin. If he was not a bastard, what was he? I'll give you 10 minutes. Come to my study when you're done. Ji Bowen angrily threw down these words and turned to leave. If he stayed any longer, he was afraid that he would not be able to control himself and would want to hit someone. After such a scandal, the guests who had attended the banquet quickly took their leave. When Ji Yuchi came out of her room, she was faced with an empty hole. Wine glasses were strewn about, giving off a feeling that everyone had left at the end of the song. She picked up a glass of red wine and took a sip. A tall and slender figure walked quickly to her and asked in a low voice, "Is what happened in the guest room true?" Ji Yuqi glanced at him. Tang Feng, who was favored by the heavens, had an ugly expression on his face. His eyes were still. She avoided his gaze and faintly said, "Yes, it's true." Tang Feng's mind went blank, and the blood drained from his face. He did not go upstairs with the others, so naturally, he did not see the erotic scene. However, when he heard the whispers of the others, he still had a trace of hope that they were slandering Yizisu. When he received confirmation from Yuqi, all his beautiful fantasies about love were shattered. In his heart, Yizisu was a pure and kind goddess. How could she do such a thing? Ji Yuqi could only sympathize with him. Other than that, there was nothing else. She did not stay here to accompany him. She walked out of the hall. The scenery in the garden was still beautiful, and the moonlight was very charming. However, she was not in a good mood, because in her previous life, she, Ji Yuqi, was the one whose reputation was ruined. She sat on the hanging chair and slowly closed her eyes. She could not help but think of what had happened in the past. That night, her dress was also dirty. She went upstairs to change, but Chinifei blocked her in the corridor and tricked her into the guest room. There were aphrodisiac flowers in the guest room. She felt that something was wrong with her body. Then, Chinifei hugged her tightly, kissed her, and caressed her. She wanted to push him away, but she did not have any strength. Then, Jiang Tianhao barged in and beat Chinifei up. She was tormented by desire and could not help but hug Jiang Tianhao, who had saved her. At this moment, Chen Tingfang led the guests to put on a show of catching them in the act. In order to protect her reputation, Ji Bowen, who had always disapproved of the relationship between Yuqi and Jiang Tianhao, had no choice but to lie. He said that Jiang Tianhao was Yuqi's boyfriend. This was better than saying that she was humiliated by her cousin in name. However, paper cannot wrap fire. Soon, the scandal of Chinifei raping Ji Yuqi spread throughout the city. Jiang Tianhao pretended to be deeply in love with Ji Yuqi. He did not care about the past and firmly followed Ji Yuqi, officially becoming her fiancé. Ji Yuqi thought that he really loved her and even felt that he owed her. She felt that she had dragged down his reputation. She did not expect that in order to get her father's approval, he would collude with Chinifei to humiliate her. Thinking of the humiliation she had suffered in her previous life, Ji Yuqi's dry eyes gradually moistened. She bit her lip hard and clenched her fists so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Her whole body trembled uncontrollably. Suddenly, she felt a weight beside her. A warm body pressed against her arm. She opened her eyes abruptly and glared at the person who had come. The next second, her eyes widened. She said in surprise, "Why haven't you left yet?" Under the moonlight, her smooth and fair cheeks were like fine mutton fat jade. Such a beautiful face should not reveal a sad expression. She should be happy and blissful. Shenzhou was bewitched by the moon. He could not help but reach out and gently wipe away the tears at the corner of her eyes. He said gently, "I'm waiting for you." Her eyes widened even more. "Waiting for me to do what?" Shenzhou smiled faintly. "Personally give you a birthday present." She blinked and wanted to say something, but he opened his other hand. A bracelet inlaid with an aquamarine lay quietly in the palm of his hand. The dazzling brilliance was incomparably resplendent under the moonlight. He put it on her right wrist and said gently, "This bracelet and necklace happen to be a pair. Do you like it?" Ji Yuqi lifted her wrist slightly. The bracelet flowed around her wrist like a lake. It was dazzlingly beautiful. She narrowed her eyes and laughed softly. "It's very beautiful. I like it very much." "Thank you. Chi-Chi." What? Ji Yuqi admired the bracelet on her wrist seriously. She did not notice that a certain someone had become intimate with her. Can I kiss you? Shinja's obsidian-like eyes shone brightly as he looked at her expectantly. Ji Yuqi was petrified. Was this Shinja? When did he become so devilish? He actually used such a serious expression to discuss such an ambiguous matter. She was already speechless. Chi-Chi, can I kiss you? Shinja repeated. His handsome face inched closer to her. She quickly pushed his face away and laughed dryly. What are you doing? Don't joke around. Shinja looked hurt. I'm not joking around. I'm seriously asking for your opinion. Ji Yuqi's little heart thumped. She turned her face away awkwardly and said in a flustered voice, well, it's getting late. You should hurry home. Be careful on the road. Bye. As soon as she finished speaking, she lifted her skirt and ran away in a panic without a care for her image. Shinja had turned into a devilish man. She could not handle him at all. Shinja watched helplessly as his beloved little girl ran away. He sat in silence for a long time. Then, he took out a small notebook called Love Notes that he always carried with him. He wrote, March 20th, wanted to kiss Chi-Chi, but was rejected by Chi-Chi. After he finished writing, he thought for a while and added a few words at the end. So sad. Ji Yuqi ran into the living room as though she was being chased by a ferocious beast. She bumped into Jiang Tianhao, who was coming down the stairs. His handsome face was pale, and his clear eyes were filled with pain. He walked towards Ji Yuqi step by step. His voice was hoarse as though he had suffered great torment. He said, Yuqi, do you believe me? Ji Yuqi smiled miserably. Her beautiful face was filled with pain. What does it matter if I believe you or not? Senior, you're now Sisu's boyfriend, right? She bit her lip and spat out those words with difficulty, I congratulate you. She covered her face and ran away sadly. He suddenly grabbed her wrist and said anxiously, Yuqi, believe me. I really didn't do it on purpose. I was knocked out by someone. When I woke up, it was already too late. Ji Yuqi's back was to him, and her lips curled into a vicious smile. I believe you. Of course I believe you, because I knocked you out and threw you onto the bed. If it weren't for the fact that Chinifei won't wake up for a while, maybe you two could have made love. What a pity. Her body trembled slightly. He thought that she was crying sadly, but she was actually trying her best to suppress her desire to laugh. She lamented, it's already settled. Senior, we can only blame ourselves for not being fated to be together. She pried his fingers away and ran upstairs while covering her face. Jiang Tianhao was left alone downstairs. His right hand was still in the air as he stared at her delicate back in disappointment. Yi Sisu stood at the corner of the first floor. She could clearly see Jiang Tianhao's expression. She couldn't help but clench her fists in anger. In the study, the two of them were harshly scolded by Ji Bowen. After that, she secretly told Jiang Tianhao that she suspected Ji Yuqi had done something to cause the situation to turn around. However, Jiang Tianhao didn't believe her. He said that he believed that Ji Yuqi really liked him. He believed that Ji Yuqi didn't have such malicious intentions. His words made Yi Sisu furious. If Ji Yuqi wasn't malicious, then was she? Wasn't she doing it for their future? She wanted that woman, Ji Yuqi, to be completely ruined so that she could vent the anger in her heart. Yi Sisu's affairs had spread throughout Ing City. Those with daughters used her as a negative example to teach their daughters. Those with sons taught their sons a lesson to never mix with a woman like Yi Sisu. Beauty Novel, Xinwu 799. Chapter 813. Her reputation at Capital University had been tarnished. Even though Jiang Tianhao had stood by her side to support her, defend her, and prove her innocence, many people who used to like her had turned to attack her, including her former fans. Now, they had all become passers-by. Jiang Tianhao was also unlucky. His reputation in school plummeted. He used to be a prince charming with good character and academic performance, but now he became a gigolo who seduced rich girls. The girls who used to like him withdrew their olive branches. They were too embarrassed to admit that they used to like him. Wherever he went, people would point at him. In this, besides Ji Yuqi deliberately creating hype, there was also Gu Fifen's torment. Who asked Jiang Tianhao to provoke him? Ji Yuqi, on the other hand, was still doing things her own way. She kept a low profile in school and only interacted with a few people. She spent the rest of her time practicing martial arts. She knew that Yi Zixu had suffered a huge setback this time and would not let it go. They would definitely attack again, so she had to be prepared. On the weekend, Lin Yuxi asked Ji Yuqi to go horseback riding at a farm in the suburbs. Ji Yuqi changed into a handsome and neat riding outfit. When she arrived at the garage, she found that her car had been sent to the 4S shop for maintenance. She could only ask the driver, Li Wei, to send her to the destination. After the car left the city, it drove onto the ring highway. Ji Yuqi was drowsy, so she simply leaned against the seat and closed her eyes to rest. After some time, she suddenly felt the car stop. She suddenly opened her eyes. "Little Li, have we arrived?" "Not yet, Mississippi. There's a car accident in front. The road is blocked. I'll go take a look. I'll be back soon." Without waiting for her answer, Li Wei opened the car door and got out. Ji Yuqi looked around. Their car had already left the highway and was parked by a river. Less than 20 meters away, there was a group of people gathered around a van. They seemed to be arguing about something. Li Wei walked in front of those people. Just as he opened his mouth to ask, a man wearing a baseball cap suddenly hit Li Wei on the back of his head. Li Wei softly fell to the ground. Then, the man in the baseball cap led the group of people towards Ji Yuqi. Ji Yuqi sensed that something was wrong and quickly climbed from the back seat to the front. She wanted to drive away, but the car keys were taken away by Li Wei. An arm reached in through the window, grabbed her hair, and dragged her to the window. Another person got in from the other side of the car and covered her mouth and nose with a handkerchief stained with knockout powder. Ji Yuqi immediately stopped breathing. When she was practicing swimming, Xiao Yao often threw her into the swimming pool. She could hold her breath underwater for up to 15 minutes. It was not difficult for her to pretend that she was drugged. "Hurry up, get her into our car." Someone spoke in a rough voice beside her ear. Then, she was lifted up by two people and thrown into the van rudely. Her hands and legs were tied, and her head was covered with a black hood. She did not know how long the car drove before it finally came to a stop. She was half dragged, half carried, and thrown to the ground by a man. The sound of footsteps stopped beside her. She felt someone squatting beside her. Then, a hand pulled off the hood on her head. She still had her eyes closed and pretended to be unconscious. A large hand rubbed her face twice. The man laughed wretchedly. "Tsk, this woman is really beautiful. Brothers, we have found a treasure. Old Six, let's get down to business first. Brother Xian said that he wants us to take a set of erotic photos of this little girl. After we're done, we'll enjoy it. I've never touched such a delicate young lady. Isn't that right? My cock is already hard. Let's hurry up and finish. I want to make this little b*tch suffer under my body." The 5 men surrounding Ji Yuqi kept saying vulgar words. Each of them was rubbing their fists and palms together. Their eyes were shining like hungry wolves, ready to tear her to pieces at any time. Ji Yuqi's heart was filled with disgust. She really wanted to kick away the man who was caressing her cheek, but she couldn't. There were 5 of them, and they were quite skilled. If she acted rashly, she would hurt herself instead. She had to be patient and wait for the right time to strike. Shen Group, Vice President's office. Shenju stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, overlooking the bustling city, the busy world, and the vast sky. He felt an inexplicable emptiness in his heart. He could not help but think of the back of the little girl who had fled. His charming phoenix eyes narrowed slightly as he played with the phone in his hand. Say said that women liked men thinking about them. It would be perfect if they sent a text message or called from time to time. Well, then I'll send a text message to ask what she was doing. Forget it, I'd better call her. He hadn't heard her voice for several days. In the car on the side of the road, the milky white mobile phone was forgotten in the back seat of the car. The beautiful melody sounded again and again, but no one answered. Shenja frowned. What happened to Yuchi? Why didn't she answer his phone? He quickly returned to his desk, opened his laptop, and used the positioning software to find the location of Yuchi. He found that she was in an abandoned warehouse in the suburbs. He immediately jumped up from the chair, grabbed the mobile phone and ran out. Since practicing martial arts, Yuchi's hearing had become sharp. She heard 3 people leaving. They were probably going to prepare the camera equipment. The 2 people left behind untied the ropes on her hands and feet. Okay, the camera is ready. The 2 of you quickly take off her clothes and take pictures while she's unconscious. A pair of hands touched Yuchi's chest, and another pair fell on her waist. She trembled slightly and slowly opened her eyes. Her eyes were filled with confusion. Then, she panicked and shouted, "Who are you?" She rolled back in fear, avoiding the 2 pairs of hands. The man standing behind the camera cursed, "Damn, this woman actually woke up. Tao Zi, Dinyo, you guys go and help. Take off her clothes for me. Hey!" The 2 people who were called out couldn't wait for such a good thing to fall into their hands. With a lewd smile on their faces, they quickly went forward. The 4 men surrounded Yuchi and said obscene words. At the same time, they stretched out their hands and pounced on her body. Yuchi flew up and kicked one of them in the chest. That person was caught off guard and was kicked. He fell on the ground and cursed, "Damn girl, your strength is not small. Brothers, be careful." Even without him saying, the 3 men knew that they had avoided Yuchi's attack. A stocky fatty pounced on Yuchi and used his body to suppress her. She struggled with all her strength, but the 200 pounds of weight on her body made it impossible for her to throw him off. The fatty's 2 large hands grabbed her shirt and tore it apart. The fabric made a sharp tearing sound and her chest was instantly exposed in front of everyone. It attracted the lecher's green eyes. They rubbed their palms and couldn't wait to immediately pounce on her and tear her apart. When those hands touched her body, the memories of her being violated by that man in her previous life came flooding back. Her mind was filled with bright red blood stains. She couldn't help but tremble. She stopped struggling and closed her eyes in despair. Her right hand quietly slid down, avoiding those people's hands. She touched her calf and touched the hard dagger. She quickly pulled it out. "Ah!" the fatty suddenly cried out in pain. There was an incomparably sharp dagger in his back. Yuchi suddenly opened her eyes. Her cold eyes coldly stared at the fatty who was sitting on top of her. At this moment, the bloodthirsty factor in her body was revived. With her strong hatred, she didn't stop at all. She pulled out the dagger and fiercely stabbed it. This stab hit his vital point. He stared in disbelief with his bloodshot eyes. Fresh blood flowed out from the wound. Yuchi expressionlessly pushed him away and he fell to the ground with a plop. The other 4 looked at Yuchi, who was covered in blood, and couldn't help but shiver. That woman was too terrifying. She was like a vengeful ghost that came to claim their lives. She held a blood-stained knife in her hand and stared coldly at them. Her clothes were open in front of her chest, and her soft breasts were wrapped in her bra. She looked as if her breasts were about to burst out, releasing a fatal charm. She casually pulled her lapel to cover it up a little. Her cold eyes swept over the 4 people who were already in a state of alert. She coldly said, "Who is Brother Xian? Was he the one who ordered you to kidnap me? Brothers, don't talk nonsense with her. Let's go together. Let's avenge the dead de Xiong. Go." The 4 men casually picked up chairs, wooden sticks, daggers, and other items and rushed towards Ji Yuqi. Ji Yuqi was like a demon who had crawled out from hell. She coldly waved the dagger and circled around the 4 men. She didn't even blink as she cut off a man's ear, slashed another man's arm, and stabbed the dagger into another man's chest. She was also injured. A red and swollen bump appeared on her forehead. Her back and legs were slashed by the dagger. She gritted her teeth and didn't make a sound. These injuries were nothing compared to the pain of falling off a cliff in her previous life. She used the dagger to stab her enemies again and again. She didn't know who it was, but someone's blood sprayed on her face and blurred her vision. There were only 2 men left who surrounded her. Just as she was about to lose her strength, she heard a few gunshots and the 2 men stiffly fell to the ground. Ji Yuqi's legs went soft. A figure quickly rushed over and hugged her tightly in his arms. His deep and hoarse voice was low and hoarse. "Chi-Chi, don't be afraid. I'm here." The strong smell of blood rushed to her nose. His palms were covered in sticky blood. Shinja didn't care and hugged Ji Yuqi even tighter. The moment he saw her in danger, his heart almost stopped. Only when he hugged her and felt her warmth did he dare to believe that she was still alive. The man behind her was trembling. Ji Yuqi's long eyelashes fluttered. The red in her eyes slowly dissipated and her mind regained some clarity. She killed someone. She really killed someone. Although she had fantasized about killing Jiang Tianhao countless times, she had never put it into practice. This was her first time killing someone, but she couldn't guarantee that it would be the last time. She stared blankly at her hands. Her hands were stained with blood. She couldn't wash them clean. She had already embarked on a path of no return. Her heart would become more ruthless and cold. She didn't dare to look back. She was afraid to see Shinja's disgusted eyes. If he saw her vicious side, he would hate her. The warm blood seeped through the thin material of his shirt and stained Shinja's chest. Only then did he realize that her back was injured. He hurriedly let go of her and carefully examined her injuries. The wound on her back was at least 5 centimeters long. Her arm was also scratched. His heart tightened. He carried her in his arms and carefully avoided her wounds as he strode out. Come and see, Songshu 566. Chapter 8:14. Ji Yuqi allowed him to do as he pleased. She lowered her eyes and looked at the blood all over the floor, as well as the corpses that had died with their eyes wide open. Her stomach churned with a strong sense of nausea, and she covered her mouth tightly. Don't look. They all deserve to die. Shinja sensed that something was wrong with her, so he lowered his head and comforted her. Then, he quickened his pace and walked out. Ji Yuqi leaned sideways against the back of the chair. She was wearing Shinja's jacket, and her body was still trembling slightly. Shinja found a medical kit from somewhere, lifted her blood-soaked shirt, and carefully bandaged her wound. The scratch on her fair skin was particularly glaring. His heart ached for her, and a trace of sternness flashed across his deep eyes. After treating the wounds on her back and arm, he gently turned her head over and cleaned the wound on her forehead. His eyes were slightly lowered, and his gaze was focused on the wound on her forehead. His movements were extremely gentle, as if he was treating his most precious treasure. His warm breath brushed against her forehead like a warm feather, gently soothing the panic in her heart. It was the panic of her first murder. After applying the medicine, he supported her to lean against his shoulder with one hand, and covered her eyes with the other. He said gently, "You're tired. Rest for a while." She didn't say anything, but quietly leaned against him. Her heavy eyelids closed, and an overwhelming sense of fatigue swept over her. In a daze, she heard Ozzy deliberately lowering his voice. "Young master, those people have been cleaned up. It's a pity that we didn't manage to find out the mastermind behind it." In a 5-story teaching building, Ji-Yuchi stood on the rooftop and looked down. The boy she liked was holding the hand of a girl in a white dress, and they left without looking back. The girl in the white dress turned back to look at her, and there was a vicious smile on her beautiful face. She said, "Ji-Yuchi, I've snatched away your tang phone." The wind whistled, and Ji-Yuchi's long dress fluttered. She stood on the rooftop, closed her eyes in despair, and took a step in the air. Suddenly, a hand grabbed her arm. She turned back and saw Jiang Tianhao smiling at her. "Yuchi, even if the whole world abandons you, I won't abandon you. Come, I'll pull you up." He reached out his hand, and she was touched and held it tightly. The scene suddenly changed, and the building became a cliff. His expression suddenly changed, and he cursed fiercely, "Ji-Yuchi, you be *tch, hurry up and die." He flung her hand away, and kicked her chest, kicking her down the cliff. Ji-Yuchi screamed and sat up. Her whole body was drenched in sweat, and her wet hair stuck to her forehead. Her face was pale, and her eyes were full of fear. She couldn't distinguish between reality and a dream. She pinched her arm hard, and only when she felt the pain did she realize that she was still alive. "What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare?" Shinja was sitting on a chair in front of the window, and he was holding a laptop in his hand. When he heard her scream, he closed the laptop and hurried to her side. He sat at the head of the bed and hugged her, who was in a daze. His right hand patted her back gently, and he comforted her gently. "It's okay, Chi-Chi. Don't be afraid, I'm here." His chest was firm and warm, and it made her feel very safe. She leaned in his arms and smelled his unique fragrance, and her uneasy heart gradually calmed down. After leaning in Shinja's arms for a long time, Ji-Yuchi's emotions gradually calmed down. She leaned her head on his shoulder and said the first thing she said after returning from the abandoned warehouse. "Shinja, am I very vicious?" Shinja tightened his arms, and his chin rested on her hair. His voice was unbelievably gentle. "You're not vicious, you're just protecting yourself. If you didn't kill them, you would be the one who got hurt. Chi-Chi, you didn't do anything wrong. Of course, if anyone dared to bully her again, he would do it himself. He wouldn't let the blood of those people stain her hands again." Ji-Yuchi didn't say anything else, but her heart was relieved. After her rebirth, her goal was very clear. She wanted revenge. Anyone could say that she was vicious, but not Shinja. She didn't want to be despised by him. He stroked her hair gently. She lowered her eyes and didn't say anything, and the atmosphere became a little ambiguous. Ji-Yuchi came back to her senses from her own world. She suddenly felt that their actions were too intimate. She quickly straightened her body and moved her butt back. Her fair face was dyed with a faint layer of pink. "Thank you for today." Shinja couldn't help but think of the scene he saw in the warehouse. She was covered in blood and was surrounded by several men. Her clothes were torn, and the skin on her chest was exposed. If she didn't know martial arts and delayed until he rushed over, the consequences would have been unimaginable. His heart was burning with anger, and he swore to find the person who hurt her and tear them to pieces. Shinja's eyes flashed with a trace of ruthlessness, but his voice was very gentle. I'll send a bodyguard to secretly protect you in the future. Ji Yuqi hesitated. With her current strength, it was really difficult for her to compete with Qin Tingfang. However, accepting Xinji's bodyguard meant that she would drag him down. In this life, she didn't want to implicate him. Xinji seemed to see her concerns and said, "Don't worry, the bodyguard is only responsible for protecting you. If you don't want to, I won't interfere in your affairs." Ji Yuqi finally nodded, and her gratitude towards him was even greater. It was already afternoon. Ji Yuqi had been missing for half a day. Her father and brother must be very anxious. She wanted to go back quickly. Xinji asked Aze to drive her back. When she left Xinji's villa, she felt that something was wrong. It wasn't until the car drove out of the villa that she suddenly reacted. How did Xinji know that she was in the abandoned warehouse? She looked back and saw that Xinji was still standing at the villa's entrance. Dressed in white, he was extremely beautiful under the sunlight. The corners of his lips curled up, and there seemed to be a smile in his eyes as he watched her gradually disappear into the distance. When Lin Yuxi arrived at the racecourse, she didn't see Ji Yuqi. She called her cell phone, but no one answered. She then called the Ji family, but the servant said that Yuqi had already left. Lin Yuxi felt uneasy and worried that Yuqi had met with an accident. She was not in the mood to ride a horse anymore, so she rushed to the Ji family to discuss with the Ji family about the whereabouts of Yuqi. Ji Bowen dialed the number of the driver, Li Wei, and the nurse at the hospital answered. The nurse said that Li Wei was sent to the hospital by a kind person. He suffered a minor head injury and was still unconscious at the moment. Ji Bowen was anxious and uneasy. He knew that Yuqi must have met with an accident. If it was a kidnapping, why hadn't the kidnappers contacted her family? The longer Yuqi was missing, the more dangerous her situation would be. He made a prompt decision and picked up the phone to call the police. Qin Tingfang pressed his hand. "Old Ji, calm down. If Yuqi was really kidnapped, the kidnappers will definitely contact us. If you call the police now, what if the kidnappers find out and are angered? What if they do something to hurt Yuqi?" Ji Bowen's gaze turned cold and he said in a deep voice, "If the kidnappers didn't kidnap Yuqi for ransom, then the longer we delay, the more dangerous it will be for her. Let go, I have to call the police. Why don't we wait a little longer? Maybe the kidnappers will contact us soon." Qin Tingfang persuaded, but her hand loosened. She wasn't sincerely persuading Ji Bowen. She was just putting on an act. If Ji Bowen called the police and the kidnappers took photos of Ji Yuqi and raped her, they could say that it was because Ji Bowen called the police that angered the kidnappers, causing them to hurt Ji Yuqi. This way, the kidnappers' true purpose could be covered up. Secondly, it could also sow discord between Ji Bowen and his daughter. Ji Bowen didn't wait any longer and directly called the police. He didn't notice the strange light in Qin Tingfang's eyes, but Ji Yunhan did. He was so angry that his teeth itched. This old witch. His sister was missing, and she still stopped his father from calling the police. It seemed that she couldn't wait for his sister to never come back. Thinking of this, he glared angrily at Qin Tingfang. The atmosphere in the living room was very oppressive. Ji Bowen and Ji Yunhan were like fish on a barbecue fire. Every minute and second was torture. Lin Yuxi was full of guilt. She gripped her phone tightly and looked at Ji Bowen, who had a gloomy face. "Uncle Ji, I'm very sorry. If I didn't ask Yuqi out to play, she wouldn't have gotten into this accident." Ji Bowen wasn't someone who didn't know right from wrong. "Yuqi, this isn't your fault. Don't take responsibility for it." The Lin family had a high status in Ying City. Qin Tingfang wanted to be on good terms with the Lin family, so she smiled kindly. "That's right, Yuqi. This is an accident. It has nothing to do with you. Please don't take it to heart. Yuqi is a kind child. If she knew that you were feeling so guilty, she would be upset too. Lin Yuxi wasn't stupid. She had long seen that Chen Tingfang and Yuqi seemed to have a harmonious relationship on the surface, but in reality, they saw each other as enemies. Therefore, she turned a blind eye to Chen Tingfang's goodwill and responded politely and distantly. Ji Yunhan hated Chen Tingfang's hypocrisy the most. With a cold face, he said in a deep voice, "Auntie, don't come to a conclusion so early. Whether it was an accident or man-made, we will find out very soon. Sister used to drive herself out and nothing had ever happened. This time, her car was coincidentally sent for maintenance, and little Li was driving her when she got into an accident. It's hard to say whether or not someone was behind this." Ji Bowen's expression didn't change, but his eyebrows twitched slightly. It was obvious that he took his son's words to heart. He also suspected that this wasn't as simple as a kidnapping. Chen Tingfang frowned and said unhappily, "Ah Han, what do you mean by that? Are you suspecting Li Wei? Don't forget that he's injured himself." Ji Yunhan snorted. "I didn't say that I suspected him. You said it yourself." "Yup," Chen Tingfang swallowed her anger and smiled. "You child, why are you angry with Auntie? Auntie is just concerned about your sister." "Then I really have to thank Auntie for your relationship." A familiar clear voice floated into the hole. Ji Yunhan jumped up excitedly. "Sister, you're back." Ji Bowen also stood up. He couldn't hide the joy on his face. "Chi-Chi, are you okay?" "Dad, Han, I'm fine." Ji Yuqi wore a beige dress. Her hair hung over her shoulders, and her bangs covered the scar on her forehead. She walked gracefully into everyone's line of sight. There was a bright smile on her exquisite face. She hugged Lin Yuxi, who was closest to her. "Yuxi, I made you worry." Lin Yuxi's eyes were slightly red. She smiled and punched her. "It's good that you're back safely." Ji Yuqi smiled and winked at Ji Yunhan. Then, she hugged Ji Bowen's arm. "Dad, I'm sorry for making you worry." Ji Bowen's throat was dry. He said repeatedly, "It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back." Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 8:15. Ji Yuqi felt a little guilty. Actually, she could have reported her safety to her family after being rescued, but she didn't. She had monitored Chen Tingfang and her daughter's phone calls. She wanted to secretly observe their reactions. As expected, the mother and daughter were very suspicious. Chen Tingfang had sent a message to Yi Zhisu saying that the matter had been settled. Ji Yuqi suspected that they were related to the kidnapping, but she hadn't found any evidence yet. Chen Tingfang was the most surprised by Ji Yuqi's safe return. She pretended to be happy. "Yuqi, it's great that you're back safely. Where did you go? Why did you even change your clothes? We all thought you were kidnapped." She had even changed her clothes. Wasn't that a hint that she had done something bad? Ji Yuqi smiled faintly. "On the way to the racecourse, we ran into a car accident. Shaoli got out of the car to check and was knocked unconscious. I was almost taken away by them. Thankfully, a friend passed by and saved my life. I was slightly injured, and the blood stained my clothes, so I changed into a clean set of clothes." Ji Bowen's expression changed, and he shouted, "Butler, quickly call Dr. Gao over." Ji Yuqi hurriedly said, "Dad, I'm fine. It's not serious. I've already bandaged it at the hospital." Ji Bowen frowned slightly. "Let Dr. Gao take a look. Otherwise, I won't feel at ease." Ji Yuqi couldn't persuade him, so she didn't insist. She glanced around the living room and asked, "Auntie, where's Zhisu? Why don't I see her?" "Zhisu went hiking with her friends. When I heard that you were missing, I called her to ask her to come back." She should be on her way now. Hiking with her friends. She obviously went on a date with Jiang Tianhao. Ji Yuqi didn't expose her. After chatting with Lin Yushi for a while, the family doctor of the Ji family, Gao Qinghai, rushed over. Dr. Gao checked her injuries and changed the medicine. He said that the injuries weren't very serious, and Ji Bowen and the others were relieved. Yi Zhisu said goodbye and left. Ji Yuqi walked her to the door. She looked around and whispered, "Yuqi, I think this matter isn't simple. Be careful." Ji Yuqi's heart warmed, and she smiled. "I will, Yushi. Thank you." Yi Zhisu returned home anxiously, playing the role of a good sister who was concerned about her older sister. She held Ji Yuqi's hand, and her eyes were red. She was about to cry. "Sister Chi-Chi, it's great that you're okay. I almost went crazy when I heard that you were missing." Who didn't know how to act? Ji Yuqi hugged her and said softly, "I'm sorry, Zhisu. I made you worry." Seeing that the two sisters were so close, Ji Bowen's expression softened a little. He ordered the kitchen to prepare more food that the two sisters liked to eat to help Yuqi recover from her shock. Chen Tingfang volunteered to cook, saying that she would personally cook. The atmosphere seemed harmonious, but in fact, there were undercurrents surging. Chen Tingfang's culinary skills were very good. She used her culinary skills to capture Ji Bowen's heart. Unfortunately, things were unpredictable. She didn't marry Ji Bowen, and Ji Bowen married Yuqi's mother, Su Meiyu. After Su Meiyu passed away, Chen Tingfang and Ji Bowen reunited at a banquet. Chen Tingfang relied on her cleverness to continue her relationship with Ji Bowen. She married him and became his second wife. She personally cooked and prepared a large table of dishes, some of which were Ji Bowen's favorite dishes. When Ji Bowen saw the familiar dishes, he couldn't help but recall the time when he fell in love with Chen Tingfang. At that time, he was still a poor boy, and she was the daughter of a rich family. Although she couldn't marry him because of her family, she still occupied a unique position in his heart. After Chen Tingfang married him, they also spent a warm time together. However, as the two of them got along, Chen Tingfang's shortcomings were also exposed. She spent a lot of money, was extravagant, and loved to show off in front of others, which made Ji Bowen a little unhappy. Furthermore, what she did to Yuqi during this period of time made Ji Bowen's heart cold, and his attitude towards her became even colder. "Bowen, this is your favorite soup. Drink more." Chen Tingfang scooped a bowl of soup and placed it in front of Ji Bowen. Her pair of gentle and smiling eyes were filled with expectation. Ji Bowen finally remembered her good, and faintly said, "It's been hard on you. It's good that you like it." Chen Tingfang smiled brightly. Although she was almost 40 years old, her skin was well maintained, and there wasn't a single wrinkle on her face. When she smiled, she was as bright and beautiful as a young girl. Ji Bowen was slightly dazed. It was as if he saw her in university, and his expression couldn't help but become gentle. "Come, Yuqi, try this. Auntie specially made it very light. Eating it won't leave scars on your wounds." Chen Tingfang enthusiastically picked up food for Ji Yuqi. "Thank you, Auntie." Ji Yuqi's lips curled into a faint smile. She lowered her eyes and ate the food in small bites to hide the frost in her eyes. She was already certain that Chen Tingfang was behind the kidnapping. She knew this woman too well. If she didn't have a guilty conscience, she wouldn't be so careful to please her. Back in the room, Ji Yuqi had just finished changing her clothes. Ji Yunhan stood hesitantly at her door. "Han, what's the matter?" Ji Yuqi tidied her hair as she let him in. Ji Yunhan's handsome cheeks were slightly red, and his clear eyes flickered. He hesitantly said, "Sis, there's something that I don't know if I should say." Ji Yuqi patted him on the head and smiled. "I'm your sister. What's there that you can't say? That. Ji Yunhan scratched his head and stammered, sis, if I say it, you can't laugh at me. In her previous life, the relationship between the siblings was cold. Ahan had never confided in her. For a moment, she was excited and expectant. Her eyes lit up as she encouraged him. Don't laugh, don't laugh. Tell me. I think I like a girl. Ji Yunhan's cheeks were red like a shy little bunny. He was extremely innocent. Ji Yuqi had never seen him like this. She wanted to laugh, but she was afraid of angering her brother, so she could only try her best to suppress it. The corners of her eyes were full of smiles. She pretended to be serious and said, Ahan, you're all grown up. It's normal for you to like girls. What kind of girl is she? Is she beautiful? Ji Yunhan nodded vigorously. Very beautiful. He seemed to have thought of something and the light in his eyes dimmed. He hesitated for a moment and said, she's a very good girl, but her family background isn't good, so what if her family background isn't good? Don't you know Dad? He won't exchange his children's marriage for family benefits. As long as you like each other, Dad will definitely agree. Ji Yuqi smiled and stroked his hair. She said gently, besides, you're only in your first year of high school. There's still a long way to go in the future. What happens in the future depends on you. Ahan, I won't stop you from dating, but you can't let it affect your studies. You're the successor of the Ji family in the future. Dad and Mom want the Ji group to flourish in your hands. I understand, sis. I know what to do. I won't let you down. Ji Yunhan's eyes were firm and his young and handsome face was solemn. Ji Yuqi smiled. My brother is the best. Of course I believe in you. Ji Yunhan raised his eyebrows and smiled. His smile was as bright as the sun, so no one could look directly at him. Ji Yuqi's lips curled into a smile as she watched him leave. When his figure disappeared, the smile on her face vanished and her heart sank. She would never forget that in 2 months, Ahan would go astray and lose his life in a gang fight. Her father suffered a huge blow and became seriously ill. After that, his health deteriorated day by day. He had no choice but to let Jiang Tianhao enter the Ji group to help him. It could be said that Ahan's death was the opportunity for Jiang Tianhao to enter the Ji group. Ji Yuqi closed her eyes and opened them again. Her gaze was extremely cold. This time, she was going to stop the tragedy from happening. She would not let those cheese get away with it. In Yizisu's bedroom, Chen Tingfang sat on the sofa with a bad expression. Yizisu's expression was also very bad. She paced around the room and complained, Mom, what's going on? Didn't Dad say that it was already settled? Why is Ji Yuqi, that *tch, back in one piece? Chen Tingfang rolled her eyes at her. Sit down. You're pacing around. My eyes are getting dizzy. Can't you be more mature like a little *tch? You can't keep your cool no matter what you encounter. You're just like your dad. What sin have I committed to have met the two of you debt collectors? Yizisu saw that she was angry, so she quickly sat beside her. She hugged her arm and said coquettishly, Mom, don't be angry. Although Dad has a bad temper, he still loves you very much. Look, when you asked him to do something for you, he agreed without a second thought. Of course, Yizisu did not say that the matter had been handled very badly. She only grumbled in her heart. You don't have to speak up for him. He doesn't love me. He loves the money in my hands. Chen Tingfang knew her ex-husband, Yi Zhaoxian, too well. He might have some feelings for her, but these feelings were worthless in the face of money. Mom, Yizisu wanted to persuade her again, but Chen Tingfang raised her hand to signal her not to say anything more. She said earnestly, Zissou, you're Mom's only daughter. Everything Mom does is for you. Remember, we're a real family. Mom, of course I know. Zissou leaned against her and said coquettishly, Mom, you're so good to me. I'll be filial to you in the future. Chen Tingfang nodded with satisfaction. A lot of things have happened at home recently. That little b** tch has been able to avert danger every time. I suspect that she got the news in advance. Zissou bit her lip. Mom, could it be that Chen Yifei betrayed us? Chen Yifei's bullying of her was still vivid in her mind. Although she knew that he had taken an aphrodisiac and that he had apologized to her afterward, she still had a knot in her heart and alienated her attitude towards him. No, although Yifei is a bit unrestrained, he's still trustworthy. Chen Tingfang thought for a moment and said, I suspect that it's the servants at home. Mother Wu and Ruru have a very close relationship with that little b** tch. Zissou smirked and said proudly, Mom, let's find a chance to kick those two out of the Ji family. Chen Tingfang shook her head. No need. If we kick them out, Ji Yuqi can still bribe others. We can't guard against them. It's better to keep those two by our side and use them to pass false information to Ji Yuqi. Her lips curled into a cold smile and her eyes were bottomless. Zissou admired her mother and secretly decided to learn from her. Temporary failure was nothing to be afraid of. The final victory belonged to them. Attention, Hongcha 866. Chapter 816. The next day, Chen Tingfang drove a BMW to the beauty salon. It was a beauty salon called Weimei Spa. The customers here were either rich or powerful, and everyone was part of the upper class. The moment Chen Tingfang appeared, many familiar faces greeted her. She greeted them politely and walked into her private room. Not long after entering the room, Chen Tingfang changed her clothes, put on sunglasses and a hat, and left the beauty salon through another door. The black car she was in gradually drove away, and a white sports car followed behind her silently. The black car was parked in the underground garage of a 5-star hotel. Chen Tingfang carried her handbag and stepped out of the car elegantly in her 10 centimeters high heels. In the distance, a cold woman in black was sitting in the sports car, and her sharp and cold gaze followed Chen Tingfang's figure until she entered the elevator. Chen Tingfang pushed open the door of the presidential suite, lazily took off her glasses and casually placed them at the entrance. A pair of arms suddenly hugged her tightly from behind, and a hot breath brushed past her earlobes. The man's hoarse and deep voice rang in her ears. Baby, I missed you so much. Stop fooling around, I have something to discuss with you. Chen Tingfang turned around and stared at the man in front of her, her beautiful eyes filled with coquettishness and resentment. Ah, Xian, didn't you promise me that you would definitely take care of that little bitch Ji Yuqi? What exactly happened, and she actually ran away? The man was tall and had a square face. He was handsome and domineering, but it was a pity that his eyes were too sinister, revealing a heart-palpitating viciousness. He frowned slightly, and his eyes were cold. I'm also very curious about this question. I found 5 people to take care of her, but all 5 of them are missing. There are still bloodstains on the floor of the abandoned warehouse, and I suspect that those people are already dead. If it was Ji Yuqi who did it, then she's too powerful. Chen Tingfang thought for a moment and shook her head. It's not her. She doesn't have the ability to destroy the evidence after killing someone. That little b** tch said that someone saved her. I suspect that she has someone backing her up. Yi Zhaoxian raised his eyebrows and his gaze turned cold. Could it be someone from the Tang family? The Tang family and the Ji family have an engagement. Tang Hijie, that old fox, loves Ji Yuqi very much. Maybe he will secretly send someone to protect her. Chen Tingfang couldn't guess who helped Ji Yuqi escape. She frowned and said, no matter who it is, we have to be more careful now. Have you made arrangements for Ji Yunhan? It's already been arranged. Don't worry, nothing will go wrong this time. Yi Zhaoxian pulled Chen Tingfang into his arms and kissed her on the cheek. Chen Tingfang leaned on his chest and pinched his chin with her slender fingers. She smiled seductively. That's good. If something goes wrong again, the money will be halved. Babe, we have been husband and wife for a day, so talking about money will hurt our feelings. Let's talk about something else. For example, talk about love. Yi Zhaoxian smiled ambiguously, and suddenly picked her up and threw her onto the big bed next to him. The two of them were like firewood, and soon, they were burning with passion. An hour later, Chen Tingfang, who was nourished by love, walked out of the hotel with her face glowing. She returned to the beauty salon and lazily enjoyed the beauty treatment. On the other side, someone had found out the identity of the man who checked in with Chen Tingfang. He calmly sat in the car and reported to Ji Yuqi through the communication device. Ji Yuqi touched the earphone in her ear and smiled coldly. Yi Zhaoxian. I didn't expect Chen Tingfang to still be with her ex-husband. Things are getting more interesting. Qing Sang, you did well. Thank you for your hard work. Qing Sang's beautiful face was expressionless. Miss Ji, what should I do next? Qing Sang was the bodyguard that Shinja gave to Ji Yuqi. Ji Yuqi's beautiful eyes narrowed slightly. Chen Tingfang met Yi Zhaoxian this time. It's not as simple as cheating. She must have asked him to do something in private. Qing Sang, follow Yi Zhaoxian for the time being and see what he plans to do. The next time he goes on a date with Chen Tingfang, we'll get evidence of their affair. Qing Sang was busy tracking Yi Zhaoxian, but Ji Yuqi was not idle either. She hired a private investigator to investigate the Ji family's driver, Li Wei. 2 days ago, she was kidnapped. It was Li Wei who stopped the car halfway that the kidnappers found the opportunity to kidnap her. She suspected that Li Wei was Chen Tingfang's man. Miss Ji, this is the information you asked for. A handsome man in a black suit and gold-rimmed glasses placed a stack of information in front of Ji Yuqi. Ji Yuqi nodded politely. She picked up the information and read it carefully. Her charming eyes became deeper and deeper, and her expression became colder and colder. As she expected, Li Wei was indeed Chen Tingfang's man. Li Wei looked honest, but in reality, he loved gambling. Not only did he owe a huge debt to the casino, he even mortgaged his wife to the casino's boss. The casino's people chased Li Wei for his debt every 2 to 3 days. In a desperate situation, he was bought over by Chen Tingfang for a price of 200,000 yuan. Chen Tingfang asked him to be a spy and personally delivered Ji Yuqi to the kidnappers. He pretended to be injured and used the trick of injuring himself to clear suspicion. What a heartless Li Wei! What a vicious and merciless Chen Tingfang! Ji Yuqi sneered and threw the information on the table. Her whole body suddenly emitted a cold aura. The handsome man opposite her could not help but raise his eyebrows. His eyes, hidden behind his glasses, flashed with a flash of light. Mr. Liang, you're very efficient. I'm very satisfied. This is your reward. Ji Yuqi pushed an envelope in front of Liang Yu. Liang Yu stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window and watched as Ji Yuqi's graceful figure got into a car by the roadside. He picked up the phone and his handsome face had a respectful expression. Young Master Shin, I've already handed the information to Miss Ji. Yes, I'll take note. Liang Yu was getting more and more confused by his boss. He obviously wanted to curry favor with Miss Ji. Why didn't he make a move? Why did he hide behind the scenes and hide the true source of Miss Ji's information? That's right. When Ji Yuqi found this small private detective agency, Shinja bought it and even sent his elite, Liang Yu, to take care of it. His goal was to make the entire detective agency serve only Ji Yuqi. Liang Yu was very clear about the importance of Ji Yuqi in his boss's heart. Therefore, he spared no effort to curry favor with this future wife of his boss. Every time he offered the most considerate service, he hoped that this future wife would put in a good word for him in front of his boss. Of course, his wishful thinking fell through. Ji Yuqi had no idea that Xinjia had done so much for her behind her back. After reading Li Wei's detailed information, Ji Yuqi was furious. It wasn't because Li Wei had caused her to be kidnapped, but because Li Wei was too much of a scumbag. As a grown man, he had no sense of responsibility for his family. He had never given a single cent to his family. After getting into debt, he actually mortgaged his wife to the casino and allowed her to be humiliated. He was no different from that beast, Jiang Tianhao. Both of them weren't fit to be human. Ji Yuqi's hidden hatred in the bottom of her heart was ignited. She decided to teach this scumbag a lesson on behalf of herself and Li Wei's wife. After Li Wei was discharged from the hospital, he immediately went to Ji Bowen to admit his mistake and resign. With a face full of shame, he expressed that he hadn't protected Miss well and had let old master down. He didn't have the face to continue staying in the Ji family. Ji Bowen didn't blame Li Wei verbally, but in his heart, he was somewhat dissatisfied. After all, his precious daughter's injury was more or less related to him. Therefore, Ji Bowen didn't say anything to persuade Li Wei to stay. Instead, he asked the butler to give him 2 more months' salary and agreed to his resignation. Li Wei carried a handbag and happily walked out of the bank. There were 200,000 yuan in the bag. He was going to take this money and leaving city to start a new life. The casino, the Ji family, and even his wife had long been forgotten by him. With so much money on him, Li Wei didn't feel at ease taking public transport. He specially called for a taxi. To the airport. The driver turned his face and smiled sinisterly. Yo, you've struck it rich. You actually have money to take a plane. Hurry up and return the money from our casino. Li Wei looked as if he had seen a ghost in broad daylight. His face was frighteningly pale. How could there be such a coincidence? He actually met the casino's hired thugs. He subconsciously hugged the handbag to his chest and trembled as he said, I don't have money. I'm going to the airport to pick someone up. Cut the crap. Follow me to the casino. The driver glared at him fiercely and stepped on the accelerator. The car sped towards the underground casino with Li Wei in tow. When they arrived at the destination, a burly man twisted Li Wei out of the car like a wine bottle and threw him heavily into the basement. Li Wei hugged the bag of money and curled up in a corner. A woman with disheveled hair and dirty body rushed in crying and wailing. She punched and kicked Li Wei. Li Wei, you bastard. You ungrateful scum. I'll kill you. This woman who seemed to have lost her mind was Li Wei's wife. She worked like a horse for the Li family and served her in-laws wholeheartedly. She treated her husband wholeheartedly, but her husband heartlessly sold her to the casino. These days, her life was worse than an animal's. If it wasn't for the fact that she couldn't bear to part with her child, she would have killed herself long ago. Stop hitting me, Xiufang. I had no choice. I still love you. Look, aren't I here to pick you up now? Li Wei knew that he couldn't keep the 200,000 yuan and immediately jumped up to express his loyalty to his wife. Wang Xiufang cried and laughed at the same time. Her eyes were bleak and despairing. If she didn't know the truth, she would have been deceived by him. She ruthlessly slapped Li Wei's face. You bastard, you don't deserve to be human. You only have money in your eyes. When have you ever thought about Huan Huan and me? Huan Huan was their daughter, and she was only 5 years old. What would she do with a father like this? The corner of Li Wei's mouth was cut and blood flowed out. He flew into a rage and pointed at Wang Xiufang's nose. Wang Xiufang, I'm warning you. Stop hitting me. If you dare hit me again, I'll divorce you immediately. Fine, I'll divorce you. I'll dump you, scum. Wang Xiufang pounced on him and ruthlessly scratched his face. In an instant, 5 bloody marks appeared on his face. Through the surveillance camera, the couple could be seen fighting. Every time the woman was at a disadvantage, a bodyguard would rush out and ruthlessly throw Li Wei out. Thus, the fight between the man and the woman gradually turned into a one-sided beating of the man by the woman. Soon, Li Wei was beaten into a pig's head. He lay on the floor like a dead dog, panting heavily. Awesome novel, Hongcha 866. Chapter 817. The owner of the casino, Mike, couldn't be bothered to look at Li Wei's cowardly face. He turned his head to look at the mysterious woman beside him. She was wearing a long black dress and had long, curly hair. A pair of large sunglasses covered half of her face, revealing only her flame-like red lips. She was like a poisonous poppy flower, emitting a fatal charm from head to toe. Mike was very curious about this young woman who had come looking for him. If she hadn't told him that Li Wei would escape with a sum of money, they would have lost a huge sum of money. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Miss, other than the 200,000 that Li Wei brought, he still owes us 300,000. Do you really intend to pay this debt on his behalf?" Ji Yuqi said indifferently, "I can give you the 300,000, but I have 3 requests. Please speak. Firstly, I don't want a second person to know of my existence. Secondly, let go of Wang Xiufang and her daughter. Thirdly, cripple Li Wei's hands." Being able to run a casino, Mike naturally wasn't a mediocre person. He could tell that the other party had a strong background and had no intention of offending her. In this line of work, it was always better to have more friends than more enemies. Therefore, he agreed to Ji Yuqi's conditions without hesitation. Before coming out of the surveillance room, Ji Yuqi heard Li Wei's painful screams. She raised her eyebrows coldly and left without a change in her expression. This street was the most chaotic place in Ying City. Crooks mixed in with honest folk, and underground casinos were everywhere. Many hooligans gathered at the streets and stared at the passers-by with ill intentions. Occasionally, a few hooligans would whistle at the girls or approach them to strike up a conversation. The girls would be so frightened that they would run away hurriedly. Ji Yuqi ignored them and walked forward leisurely. However, after walking for less than 100 meters, she heard a familiar voice coming from the corner. "Cece, don't bother about me. Run." Ji Yuqi's heart skipped a beat. It was Ah Han. Judging from his voice, he seemed to be in pain. Could he be injured? Her face darkened, and she quickly walked to the corner. In a dark corner, 4 strong men surrounded a young man. The young man's handsome face was full of scars and his clothes were stained with blood. He looked at the enemy with fierce eyes vigilantly, protecting the girl behind him. Although the girl was afraid, she was more grateful and worried for the young man. She shook her head and stubbornly said, "No, Ah Han, I won't go. Even if I die, I want to die with you." The corner of Ji Yuqi's mouth twitched. "That lady called Cece, please wake up. Do you think you're filming a drama? Instead of running away and calling the police for help, you're holding Ah Han back. Are you really doing this for his own good?" However, Ji Yunhan did not think so. He was very happy that Cece was willing to live and die with him. This gave him a great sense of happiness. Fortunately, Ji Yuqi did not know what he was thinking. Otherwise, she would definitely knock his head open and see what was inside. "Stupid girl, tell us where Lu Ming is. Otherwise, I'll let the 2 of you die here." A fierce-looking man attacked Ji Yunhan and said fiercely, "I told you, I don't know. What do you want?" Lu Cece was anxious and angry. She angrily glared and swung her bag at the people who grabbed her. "Humph, the son pays the father's debts. Since you don't know where your father is, you'll pay for him." The leader of the men had just finished speaking when his face was punched by Ji Yunhan. He was burning with anger and no longer took it lightly. He angrily said, "Brothers, beat this brat to death." The man spat a mouthful of blood on the ground. His fierce punches were fatal. His pair of small eyes were full of viciousness. "Stupid brat, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish." The four men rushed at Ji Yunhan at the same time. Ji Yunhan's handsome face was scarred. His expression was cold and solemn. His whole body exploded with a fierce aura. He actually managed to withstand their fatal attacks. However, he was still young and did not have enough combat experience. He also had to protect Lu Sisi. Soon, under the pincer attack of the four men, he showed signs of weakness. Just as the four men rushed forward and planned to subdue Ji Yunhan, an ear-piercing police siren sounded. F***CK, the police are here. Retreat. The group of thugs left Ji Yunhan and Lu Sisi behind and hurriedly fled. Anyway, they had achieved their goal. There was no need to stay here and be arrested by the police. The hurried and chaotic footsteps gradually faded away. Ji Yuqi came out from behind the wall and turned off the alarm on her phone. In fact, there was no police at all. She had just downloaded a police siren and played it on her phone. The group of people had already gone far away. Ji Yuqi still had no intention of showing up. It was not that she was not worried about Ahan's injury, but she wanted to secretly observe what kind of girl Lu Sisi was. She wanted to see if she was worthy of her brother's love. "Ahan, how are you? Is it very painful?" In the corner, Lu Sisi anxiously grabbed Ji Yunhan's arm. Her voice trembled with panic and guilt. "It's all my fault. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't be injured." Lu Sisi's clear black and white eyes were covered with mist. Her pink lips were left with traces of blood because she had bitten her teeth too hard. Ji Yunhan looked at her enduring the pain and felt very distressed. He had long forgotten the pain in his body. He softly comforted her, "Sisi, this is not your fault. Your father's gambling debt has nothing to do with you. You must not blame yourself. Ahan, don't be so good to me. I'm not worth it." Lu Sisi held back her tears and did not let them fall. Her strength, in Ji Yunhan's eyes, made him feel even more distressed. "You're worth it. You're a good girl. I like you." These words were still too embarrassing to say out loud. Ji Yunhan's ears were dyed with a touch of red. He uncomfortably avoided Lu Sisi's clear eyes, coughed awkwardly, and changed the topic. "Sisi, I'll take you home." Lu Sisi tiptoed and carefully brushed Ji Yunhan's short hair away from his forehead. Her bright eyes were filled with distress. "Ahan, don't worry about me in the future. Those people, they won't let me go. I don't want to implicate you." Ji Yunhan's pupils suddenly shrank and his face became ugly. He said in a deep voice, "Sisi, in your heart, am I, Ji Yunhan, that kind of timid person?" "No," Lu Sisi quickly shook her head. "You misunderstood. I just don't want you to get hurt." Ji Yunhan's heart warmed, and he couldn't help but grin. "I'm not afraid. Don't worry, I'll protect you." Although his cheeks were bruised, he was still as handsome and charming when he smiled. His bright smile was like the sun, shining into Lu Sisi's cold heart, making her want to get closer to him. She raised her face, and her bright and clean face bloomed with a gentle smile. "Thank you, Ahan." Lu Sisi would never forget that in the spring of her 16th year, there was a young man who pulled her out of the darkness of her life. It turned out that she could also have sunshine. But, was a girl of her status worthy of it? The young man and woman left hand in hand. The setting sun elongated their shadows. Ji Yuqi wrapped her arms around her shoulders and leaned against the wall, watching their backs disappear into the distance. Her enchanting phoenix eyes glowed with a playful light. Lu Cece, this girl wasn't simple at all. If it wasn't for the cold eyes of a bystander and staying out of the matter, even Ji Yuqi would find it difficult to find anything suspicious about her. Lu Cece proposed to send Ji Yunhan to the hospital, but Ji Yunhan didn't want to go. He knew that his injuries were all superficial and nothing serious. Lu Cece couldn't persuade him, so she could only give up. Ji Yunhan sent Lu Cece home with a face full of wounds. This was the slum area, and the house was particularly simple. Lu Cece and her sickly mother lived in 2 small rooms. She was a little embarrassed to invite Ji Yunhan into the house. Ji Yunhan didn't mind at all, and swaggered into the other's room. He even politely greeted Lu Cece's mother, Wang Xuemei. "Auntie, my name is Ji Yunhan. I'm Cece's classmate." Wang Xuemei was wearing plain clothes, and was cooking in the kitchen. Seeing her daughter bringing her classmate home, she nervously wiped her hands, and a smile appeared on her face. "Come and sit. Our house is too simple and crude. We've made a fool of ourselves in front of you. Auntie, you're too polite." Ji Yunhan politely greeted Wang Xuemei. From his words and actions, there was only respect and no contempt. Lu Cece was moved by Ji Yunhan's thoughtfulness, and the way she looked at him became more gentle. She pursed her lips and said, "Mom, Ahan was injured in order to save me. Is there any medicine at home? I'll help him deal with the wound." As soon as Ji Yunhan entered the door, Wang Xuemei saw the wound on his face. She was too embarrassed to ask how he got it. She didn't expect that he was injured in order to save her daughter. She immediately understood what was going on and quickly said, yes, it's in the TV cabinet. There's alcohol and trauma medicine." Ji Yunhan embarrassedly scratched his head. "No need to trouble yourself. It's just a superficial wound. It's okay." Of course. If the wound is not dealt with, it may become inflamed and leave a scar. Wang Xuemei was very enthusiastic. One moment, she made tea for Ji Yunhan, and the next moment, she cut fruits for him. This made Ji Yunhan feel very embarrassed. Lu Cece helped him apply the medicine. Her movements were very gentle. He looked at her focused look, and his heart was as sweet as honey. After dealing with the wound, Wang Xuemei had already put the food on the table. Although it was just a simple home-cooked meal, the taste was very good. It seemed that she had put a lot of effort into it. Ji Yunhan's appetite was great, and he ate 2 big bowls of rice. After the meal, Lu Cece wanted to help wash the dishes, but Wang Xuemei drove her away and asked her to accompany Ji Yunhan. Ji Yunhan saw that it was getting late, so he didn't want to stay any longer. He said goodbye, and Wang Xuemei asked Lu Cece to send him out of the alley. The 2 of them walked in the narrow alley, and Ji Yunhan said, "Cece, your mother is so nice." Ever since his mother passed away, he had never felt maternal love again. Chen Tingfang seemed to be very nice to him, but in reality, she was harboring evil intentions. Of course, he couldn't treat her as his mother, and he couldn't feel maternal love from her. Lu Cece knew about his family situation. She looked up at his arrogant profile and hesitated for a bit. In the end, she held his right hand and expressed her concern with her actions. She knew that sometimes, words were useless. Gentle and considerate actions could enter the other party's heart. Their fingers touched. His fingers stiffened, and his footsteps also stiffened. She suddenly felt timid, and just as she was about to withdraw her hand, he held it tightly. The Ji family's villa was dark. A dark shadow walked along the living room corridor and went upstairs. Just as he reached the stairs, the lights in the corridor suddenly turned on. Awesome novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 818. Ji Yunhan was startled by the sudden light. Just as he was about to hurry back to his room, Ji Yuqi opened the door and walked out in her pajamas. He laughed dryly. Sis, it's so late. Why haven't you slept yet? Ji Yuqi didn't say a word. Her eyes were burning as she sized up the scars on his face. He quickly avoided her gaze and scratched his head uncomfortably. He stammered as he explained, I met a few bad guys in the afternoon. I fought with them. Ji Yuqi didn't expose his lie. She stuffed a tube of ointment into his hand and said lightly, apply it twice a day. Don't let the wound get wet. If Dad asks, just say that you fell down yourself. Don't let him worry. Sis. Ji Yunhan suddenly raised his head. His eyes were filled with complex emotions. He lied to his sister. Not only did she not scold him, she even helped him cover it up. He suddenly felt very guilty. How could Ji Yuqi not know what he was thinking? She helplessly pulled the corner of her lips. She reached out and rubbed his head. She said meaningfully, Ahan, I believe that you have grown up. You know what to do and what not to do. If you encounter any trouble, you can tell me. Under her gentle gaze, Ji Yunhan had the urge to confide in her. He wanted to tell her everything. However, the moment he opened his mouth, Lu Cici's sweet smile flashed across his mind. He clenched his fists and suppressed the urge. He couldn't say that he promised Cici that he wouldn't tell anyone about her. He had to keep his promise. Sis, I'm fine. I really just fought with someone. It's getting late. You should rest early. Ji Yunhan threw down these words. He didn't dare to look into Ji Yuqi's eyes again and hurriedly went into his room. Ji Yuqi's eyes darkened when she saw him running away. She was a little disappointed and felt an indescribable sense of loss. Her brother had finally grown up and had someone he wanted to protect. In fact, this was all so good. She couldn't protect him for a lifetime. He needed to experience the bitterness and sweetness of growing up, pain and joy, as well as the sweetness and betrayal of love. Although Ji Yuqi didn't intervene in the matter between Ahan and Lu Cici, it didn't mean that she didn't care. She looked for Liang Yu to investigate Lu Cici's situation and found out that Lu Cici was Ahan's classmate. She had a gambling addict father who owed a lot of money to loan sharks. Her father abandoned her and her mother, Wang Xuemei, and ran away. Since then, the mother and daughter were often harassed by loan sharks. Wang Xuemei's health wasn't good. She relied on a cleaning job to support herself and her daughter. How could she have spare money to pay off the debt? Lu Cici was very sensible. In order to pay off the debt as soon as possible, she worked in a bar every day after school without telling her mother. All the money she earned was taken away by those vampire-like debt collectors. In this way, their family's debt kept piling up and Lu Cici was almost forced into a desperate situation. Seeing this information, Ji Yuqi's ice-cold heart didn't fluctuate much. Other than some sympathy, there was nothing else. She wasn't a saint. She didn't have the ability to save everyone who was suffering. She only wanted to protect the people she cared about. A pitiful person must have a hateful side. If this Lu Cici wanted to hurt Ahan, Ji Yuqi wouldn't let her have it easy. The relationship between a young man and a young woman was always beautiful. Ever since Ji Yunhan held Lu Cici's hand that night, the atmosphere between the two of them changed. Although there was no explicit confession, the two of them got along like an ordinary young couple. Ji Yunhan would wait outside Lu Cici's house every morning and take her to school on his bicycle. She would sit on the back seat of the bicycle and hug his waist. She would softly tell him the interesting things that happened in school. Their laughter drifted along the way. That evening, Ji Yunhan planned to take Lu Cici home as usual. Lu Cici held her school bag in one hand and looked at him with a pair of big watery eyes. She wanted to say something but stopped. Ji Yunhan smiled and asked, "What's the matter?" Lu Cece bit her bright red lips and mustered up her courage to say, "Ahan, actually, I used to work in a shop after school. I was afraid that you would be unhappy, so I asked the boss for leave and didn't go to work. But today, the boss called and said that if I didn't go to work, he would fire me. Ahan, I really need this job. Will you look down on me?" Her big beautiful eyes were filled with uneasiness. Her fingers tightly gripped the strap of her school bag and she kept a distance from him, as if she would leave him at any time. Ji Yunhan felt pity for her. This silly girl. He was her boyfriend. How could he look down on her because of that? Instead, he loved her even more because of her independence and strength. He smiled and took the school bag from her hands. He held her hand and got on the bicycle. "Aren't you going to work? I'll take you." Lu Cece's eyes widened in disbelief. Soon, a bright smile bloomed on her beautiful face. "Okay." When Ji Yunhan followed her instructions and rode his bike to the place where she worked, his face instantly darkened. He stared at Lu Cece's timid, watery eyes and gritted his teeth. "This is where you work? A bar?" He was a good boy who kept himself clean. He had never been to a place like this before, but that didn't mean that he didn't know how dirty it was. In the past, rich kids would often boast in his ears that they would pick up girls in bars for a night and so on. He could almost imagine how many hungry wolves would covet a beautiful girl like Cece working in such a place. Lu Cece's eyes reddened. Her delicate body was like a leaf in the autumn wind. She trembled slightly. "Why, you really look down on me, don't you?" Ji Yunhan's chest tightened. He had nowhere to vent his anger. With a dark face, he angrily said, "Of course not. I'm just worried about you. This kind of place has crooks mixed in with honest folks. Who knows if there might be people who have designs on you." Lu Cece's tears turned into a smile. Her bright smile was like the sun breaking through the dark clouds. It was dazzlingly beautiful. "Ahan, don't worry. This bar is very formal. It's not what you think. I'm just a little girl who serves tea. They won't do anything to me. I've worked here for several months and I've never met anyone who has designs on me." Although she said that, Ji Yunhan was still worried. He thought for a moment and said, "Cece, why don't you resign? I've saved up a sum of money. Although it's not enough to pay off my gambling debts, it's enough to buy some time so that those people won't bother you." Although his family was rich, his father was very strict with their pocket money. There was a limit every month to prevent them from developing a bad habit of spending money. He had already made up his mind. First, he would stabilize the loan sharks. Then, he would ask his sister to borrow some money to start a small business and make money to pay off Cece's debts. Lu Cece bit her lips. Her bones were filled with arrogance. She firmly looked at Ji Yunhan's eager eyes. "Ahan, I know you're doing this for my own good. I'm very grateful. But I can't take your money. Although I'm poor, I still have my self-esteem. If I take your money, I'm no longer worthy to be your girlfriend. Ahan, if you really want to help me, please support my decision." Ji Yunhan was speechless for a moment. He understood her self-esteem and her pride. But he was her boyfriend. Shouldn't he help her? Lu Cece could see his sadness. She hugged his arm and pouted. "Ahan, are you angry? Don't be angry with me, okay?" Ji Yunhan sighed silently. Facing her big, watery eyes and charming, smiling face, even if his stomach was full of resentment, it vanished like smoke into thin air. All that remained was a deep sense of pity. He rubbed her hair and smiled bitterly. "All right, I've lost to you. I don't have to quit my job, but I have to accompany you to work every day." She wailed, "Ah, no way. Boss will have a problem with that." Ji Yunhan smiled like a big fox trying to act cute. I don't care. Anyway, I'm going to follow you. She shook his arm and called out pitifully, "Ah Han," his eyes curved. It's no use acting coquettishly. Cece, it's getting late. Shouldn't you go to work? From then on, there was a new regular in the bar. He was a handsome boy who was especially eye-catching in a group of adults. He never drank and would always order a glass of fruit juice and sit in a corner. He was distant and polite to people who came up to him. His focused gaze only fell on a waitress, and all his emotions were affected by her. Lu Cece knew that Ji Yunhan had been watching her. She was used to being followed by his scorching gaze wherever she went. Occasionally, she would turn back and smile in his direction. The two of them were separated by a distance, but their hearts seemed to be linked as they smiled at each other. A man who spoiled the scene suddenly barged into the beautiful scene. He was dressed in a white collar and was well dressed. He grabbed Lu Cece's wrist, his fingers caressing her fair and delicate skin. The smile on his face was ambiguous and wretched. Little girl, how old are you? Why are you working at such a young age? Lu Cece's cheeks were red. She struggled to pull her hand away. Sir, please show some respect. Little girl, don't be so rigid. If you're willing to be my girlfriend, I can let you enter my company. The salary will definitely be higher than now. The gentle-looking man's grip was especially strong. He pulled Lu Cece into his arms and whispered in her ear. They were like a pair of infatuated lovers. After all, Lu Cece was young and didn't have enough strength. She was imprisoned in his arms and couldn't break free. She was so anxious that her eyes were red and tears were about to fall. Just when she was at a loss, a handsome figure suddenly appeared and punched the man in the face. Let go of her, you bastard. Ji Yunhan's handsome face was full of anger. His eyes were burning with anger. He couldn't wait to skin the man who bullied Lu Cece. The gentle-looking man was in pain and subconsciously let go of Lu Cece. Lu Cece's face was full of tears. She threw herself into Ji Yunhan's arms. Ah Han. It's okay. I'm here. I won't let anyone hurt you. Ji Yunhan hugged Lu Cece and patted her back. He glared at the man who was covering his cheek and said fiercely, "Open your dog eyes and look carefully. Cece is my girlfriend. I'm warning you, don't have any ideas about her in the future. Otherwise, I'll beat you up every time I see you." Beauty novel, Xinwu 799. Chapter 819. The man was taken aback by Sumo's ferocious gaze, but he quickly broke into a smile. It's a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Little brother, if I had known earlier that this young lady was your girlfriend, I wouldn't have been so rude to her. Ji Yunhan snorted coldly. He hugged Lu Cece and turned to leave, no longer paying attention to the sanctimonious guy. After such an incident, Lu Cece lost control of her emotions and was not in the mood to go to work. Her boss was also very kind and did not force her to leave. He let her leave early to have a good rest and adjust her mood. Ji Yunhan was very annoyed. He wanted to force Lu Cece to resign, but when he saw her teary little face and anxious eyes, his heart softened. He could only comfort himself that today's incident was just an accident, and he would be more careful to protect her in the future. The next day, Ji Yunhan accompanied Lu Cece to work as usual. He sat at the position with the best view, so he could always pay attention to Lu Cece's movements. He put all his attention on her and did not notice that someone was looking at him from behind. At a table not far from Ji Yunhan, 3 men sat in a circle. One of them, a young man with dyed blonde hair, lowered his voice and said, "Brother Zhe, is it that brat?" The man called Brother Zhe was the gentleman who took liberties with Lu Cece last night. He had a gentle smile on his handsome face, but his eyes were malicious and ruthless. "It's him. After fishing for so long, we can finally pull the line tonight. Another handsome man with a pair of peach blossom eyes raised his eyebrows and smiled slyly like a fox. Tonight, we'll let that brat have a taste of our methods. Sigh, that's the most beautiful girl in Yiqingqing. He got lucky. Suja narrowed his eyes and smiled. His eyes were terrifyingly cold as if they were dipped in poison. His voice was low and hoarse. We want him to be drunk and never want to wake up again. As the saying goes, the mantis catches the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. While the three of them were discussing how to deal with Ji Yunhan, in the monitoring room on the second floor, an incomparably handsome man was listening to their plan. The three fools didn't know that someone had planted a bug under the table they were sitting at. Shinja's long and narrow eyes were as dark as the sea, and his handsome face seemed to be covered with a layer of frost. His slender fingers lightly tapped on the table, and his voice was cold. Liang Yu, inform Qi. Liang Yu, who was standing behind him, respectfully replied, yes. He left the room and called Ji Yuqi. These days, he had been following her orders and following Ji Yunhan and Lu Sisi, reporting their situation to her in a timely manner. However, he didn't expect that his boss would be interested as well and interfere. It seemed like their boss was deeply in love with Miss Ji. He was always thinking about her, but he didn't want her to know how much effort he had put in behind her back. Only Shinjie and Aze were left in the monitoring room. Aze said expressionlessly, young master, if you help solve this, you will win the favor of your future brother-in-law. Shinja's charming almond-shaped eyes softened, and he said lightly, Chi prefers to do things herself. He wouldn't do things that she didn't like. Moreover, he loved Chi. What did it have to do with others? That tenderness flashed by so quickly that Aze thought he was seeing things. Aze's face was wooden as he complained in his heart, young master, is it really okay for you to be so henpecked? Miss Ji, your brother is in trouble. Hurry and come to the night charming bar. Ji Yuqi was coming out of the library when she received Liang Yu's call. When she heard his words, her heart almost stopped beating. She said anxiously, tell me clearly, what happened to my brother? The person who flirted with Lu Sisi last night is called Suja. He's a young master from a small gang. He found a few people to deal with your brother. Liang Yu explained briefly, then urged Ji Yuqi to hurry over. Ji Yuqi grabbed her handbag with one hand and ran around the campus without caring about her image. Her mind was spinning quickly. She was worried about Ji Yunhan's safety, and at the same time, she was analyzing Lu Sisi's role in this matter. Was it her? Was she the one who wanted to harm Ahan? Yuqi, just as Ji Yuqi was running for her life, a tall and strong figure blocked her way. Tang Feng was wearing a black suit. He was tall and handsome, like a pine tree standing proudly. He exuded an intimidating aura. His dark eyes were fixed on Ji Yuqi, and there were complicated emotions surging in his eyes. He seemed to be anxious and passionate at the same time. He stood in front of her and had no intention of avoiding her. Ji Yuqi had no choice but to stop running. She stared at him expressionlessly. What's the matter? This was the first time the two of them had met after the birthday party. She was like a delicate iris flower, rushing into his sight. At that moment, his gloomy mood because of Yi Zisu's deception suddenly brightened. He suddenly realized that he couldn't forget the prostitute who used to follow him around when he was young. He couldn't bear to let go of his past feelings for her. But now, the little girl who called him a brother Tang Feng was gone. Standing in front of him was a cold and distant woman. He was the one who had destroyed their friendship. Tang Feng's heart throbbed with pain. His deep eyes revealed an indescribable pain. He took a step towards her, his voice low and filled with anticipation. Chi, let's start over. Ji Yuqi looked at his handsome face calmly. Her heart was beating steadily in her chest. The throbbing of the past had long been erased. The feelings between them had also been buried. She shook her head and said calmly, "It's too late." These 3 short words were like a heavy hammer that smashed heavily on Tang Feng's chest. His handsome face instantly turned pale. It was too late. Had they already missed each other? No, it couldn't be. Chi-Chi liked him. She was just acting out of spite, just like when they were young. Ji Yuqi brushed past him. He suddenly reached out and grabbed her arm. His palm was as hot as iron and pressed against her skin. His voice was firm. "Chi-Chi, you're mine. I won't let you run away." Ji Yuqi frowned. She had to rush to the bar and didn't have time to waste with him. Without hesitation, she grabbed his hand and pushed him away. "Tang Feng, if there's nothing else, I'll leave first." Ji Yuqi pushed her handbag onto her shoulder and left without looking back. She didn't see the pain in the eyes of the person behind her. "Chi-Chi, you're just acting out of spite with Big Brother Tang Feng, aren't you? Chi-Chi, when your anger subsides, you'll still return to Big Brother Tang Feng's side, right?" Nightfall Bar, just like its name, was a nightfall. Young people indulged in their own happiness and burned their youth. They lived a life of drunkenness and luxury. There was only one handsome young man who was an exception. His eyes were clear and there was a smile on his lips. He looked at his beloved girl from afar. His smile was clean and warm, causing many lonely people to cast ambiguous glances at him. A handsome and refined man was holding a glass of wine. He sat opposite the young man with a smile on his face and said cheerfully, "Little brother, what a coincidence. We meet again." Ji Yunhan looked at the man in front of him clearly. It was the man who had bad intentions towards Cece last night. He frowned in disgust and said, "Why is it you again?" Suzhou smiled sincerely, "Little brother, my name is Suzhou. I'm here to apologize to you. It was my fault last night. You're a magnanimous person, please don't hold it against me. Come, let me propose a toast to you. Please forgive me for my rudeness last night." Suzhou picked up the glass and drank it in one gulp. He was full of pride and his eyes were sincere. Although Ji Yunhan didn't like his frivolous behavior, it was better to have one more friend than one more enemy. Moreover, if he was on good terms with Suzhou, he wouldn't be able to make things difficult for Cece in the future. Thinking of this, Ji Yunhan picked up the juice he had ordered and said politely, "Brother Su, I don't drink alcohol. I'll have this glass of juice instead. Please take care of Cece for my sake in the future." Of course, of course. I, Suzhou, don't have much, but I have a lot of friends. Little brother, don't worry. I'm sure no one will dare to bully your little girlfriend in the future. Suzhou looked gentle and refined, but his every movement was full of heroic spirit. He was like a hero of the underworld. He patted his chest loudly and Ji Yunhan was bewitched by his heroic actions. He tilted his head back and gulped down the entire glass of juice. The glass of juice went down Ji Yunhan's throat without leaving a single drop. Suzhou's eyes flashed with malice. He had added something to the juice when Ji Yunhan wasn't paying attention. It wouldn't take long for the drug to take effect. He calculated in his heart, but the smile on his face became brighter and brighter. He flattered, "Little brother, you're really generous. I, Suzhou, didn't misjudge you." The two of them chatted more and more happily. Unknowingly, two of Suzhou's friends had joined them at the table. Ji Yunhan was in high spirits and didn't pay attention to them. 10 minutes later, he suddenly felt a little uncomfortable. His head was dizzy and the shadows in front of him blurred. He held his forehead with one hand and his eyes were in a daze. His body swayed and he almost fell onto the table. Suzhou hurriedly supported his shoulders and asked worriedly, "Little brother Ji, are you okay? Are you feeling unwell?" The shadows in front of him became more and more blurred. Ji Yunhan shook his head hard and tried to wake up, but his head was even dizzier. He leaned on Suja's shoulder and murmured incoherently, "Cece, take care of Cece." The blonde boy sneered, "What a sentimental man. He's already in this state and he still can't forget that wretched girl." Suja glanced at him, his cold eyes full of warning. The blonde boy immediately stopped talking and smiled, "Brother Zhe, there are too many people here. Let's hurry up and get him out of here." Suja and the blonde-haired man carried Ji Yunhan and walked out of the bar. Another man with peach blossom eyes walked in front to clear the way. Lu Cece saw the four of them leaving and subconsciously took a step forward to chase after them. But in the next moment, her movements froze. Her face was pale and her fingers dug deep into her palms. Her misty eyes were full of hatred. Suja and the other two men brought Ji Yunhan to the hotel opposite the bar. They booked a room under his name and threw him onto a ridiculously large bed. A beautiful woman wearing a spaghetti-strap dress, perfume and light makeup walked into the room. She threw a flirtatious glance at Suja and said coquettishly, "Brother Zhe, or won't let you down." Suja touched her soft cheeks with satisfaction, "Very good. I'll leave this boy to you. Train him well." Attention, Songshu 566. Chapter 820. Ji Yunhan laid on the bed without any resistance. Although he was in a daze, he managed to stay conscious due to his strong willpower. That was why he was able to hear their conversation. He finally understood that Suja was the one who had caused him to become like this. He hated himself for being so careless and falling into their trap so easily. Cece, would they harm Cece? Thinking of this, Ji Yunhan could no longer remain calm. He struggled with all his might, wanting to crawl up. However, his body was weak and he didn't have the slightest bit of strength. He was anxious and angry. The blood in his chest roiled, and a fishy sweet taste rose up in his throat. "Little brother, don't be so agitated. I'll help you regain your strength soon. I don't like dead fish." Yao Mei's slender and fair fingers landed on Ji Yunhan's handsome face. She caressed it gently as if it was precious porcelain. Such a youthful and energetic face, it was really enviable. Ji Yunhan was disgusted by her venomous gaze. He didn't have the strength to shake off her disgusting hand. He could only move his head away to avoid her fingers. She chuckled and reluctantly retracted her hand. She took out a syringe from her bag and lifted his shirt. She giggled, "The things in this syringe are enough to make you want to die. Little brother, don't be afraid. You'll like it." Ji Yunhan forcefully bit the tip of his tongue. The taste of blood filled his mouth, causing him to instantly sober up. He lifted his powerless right leg and used all his strength to kick Yao Mei's body. Yao Mei was momentarily caught off guard and was kicked to the floor. The syringe in her hand also fell to the ground. Her gentle smile instantly changed color and her beautiful cheeks twisted in anger. "You damned brat. See if I don't properly deal with you." She picked up the syringe and elegantly tidied her messy hair. She walked towards Ji Yunhan. The moment she stabbed the syringe into Ji Yunhan's arm, the door was kicked open. She turned around in surprise and saw a red object flying towards her head at an extremely fast speed. Before she could react, the object had already hit her forehead. Blood immediately flowed out. Her vision turned black and her body softly fell to the ground. Ji Yuqi stood at the door. Seeing that although Ji Yunhan was in a sorry state, his clothes were still intact, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. Her cold gaze quickly scanned the room, and she found a camera in the corner of the ceiling. Her expression became increasingly cold, and she quickly took off her jacket and threw it at the camera. She hung it on the lens, blocking the view of the people hiding behind the camera. She walked to Ji Yunhan's side and saw the syringe in his arm. Her pupils suddenly shrank and her heart almost stopped beating. It wasn't until she confirmed that the liquid in the syringe wasn't injected into his body that she relaxed her tense body. She removed the syringe from his arm and casually placed it in her trouser pocket. She wanted to keep it to test what was inside. She patted his cheek hard. "Ahon." Ji Yunhan seemed to hear a familiar voice. He tried his best to open his eyes and wanted to speak, but he didn't have the strength. He could only make muffled noises. Ji Yuqi guessed that he was drugged and hadn't recovered yet. She pulled him up and carried him on her shoulder. Before she left, she didn't forget to pick up the weapon that attacked Yao Mei, her purse. Finally, she hid in the camera's blind spot and removed her jacket from the camera to cover her and Ji Yunhan. After Ji Yuqi carried Ji Yunhan away, the few people sitting in the hotel surveillance room realized that something was wrong. They had already prepared to record a video of Yao Mei and Ji Yunhan having sex. They didn't expect that the surveillance camera would be covered by something. They thought that Yao Mei had changed her mind at the last minute and didn't want to show off in front of the camera. Suja hurriedly dialed Yao Mei's number, but no one picked up. It was only when they saw a woman carrying a man whose head and face were covered on the surveillance camera that they realized something was amiss. They couldn't see her face, and she was carrying a man whose head and face were covered. Suja was furious. He ordered his subordinates to chase after Ji Yunhan and the mysterious man while he rushed to Yao Mei's room. Yao Mei was lying on the floor with blood all over her face. Suja touched her nose to check if she was still breathing. He immediately called for an ambulance. He still had a use for this woman's life. After all, she was the only one who had seen clearly who had taken Ji Yunhan away. Ji Yuqi didn't wait for Suja's men to catch up with her. She was already in a black car. The driver was Liang Yu, the private investigator she had hired. Liang Yu was a smart person. He never asked too many questions and didn't act on his own accord. He looked at Ji Yuqi's pale face from the rearview mirror and asked, Miss, where are we going now?" "We're going to the hospital." Ahon was drugged. Ji Yuqi recalled the scene she had just seen. She couldn't suppress the fear in her heart. The syringe was definitely not something good. If she had come a few minutes later, Ahon would have been ruined by that woman. This was Chen Tingfang's trap. She wanted to push Ahon into hell. Her fingers trembled slightly and her heart was beating rapidly. The hatred in her heart was like a monstrous flood that was about to drown her rationality. In her previous life, she didn't know what had happened to Ahon. Why did he suddenly become rebellious and refuse to go to school? Now, she vaguely understood that Ahon must have suffered inhumane torture. He must have suffered great pain and had no choice but to walk into the dark abyss. She felt a lump in her throat and held Ji Yunhan's hand tightly. She didn't dare to let go. Once she let go, she would never be able to see him again. "Sister." She heard a hoarse and weak voice. "Ahon, you're awake." Ji Yuqi tried her best to suppress her negative emotions and helped him to sit more comfortably. Her voice was full of worry. "Ahon, are you still feeling unwell?" Ji Yunhan looked at her in a daze for a long time. The confusion in his eyes gradually disappeared and his mind became clear. He tried to move his limbs. The effect of the drug must have worn off. He hurriedly sat up and said anxiously, "Sister, I suspect that Su Jia and the others are going to harm Cici. Let's hurry back to Glamorous Night Bar. I have to save her." Ji Yuqi looked at her silly brother with a complicated expression. She wanted to tell him the truth, but in the end, she didn't say it. Some things had to be seen with his own eyes before he would believe it. "Okay, let's go save her." Ji Yuqi asked Liang Yu to turn around and return to Glamorous Night Bar. The bar was bustling with noise and people were dancing on the dance floor. Ji Yuqi led Ji Yunhan through the crowd. They searched everywhere for Lu Cici's whereabouts, but they couldn't find her. Ji Yunhan anxiously grabbed Lu Cici's close colleague and asked anxiously, "Xiao Ding, do you know where Cici went?" Xiao Ding was confused. "Didn't Cici go to look for you? When did she go out?" Ji Yunhan was about to go crazy. Su Zhe and the others must have used his name to trick Cici into going out. "I think it was about 10 minutes ago." Before Xiao Ding could finish his sentence, Ji Yunhan had already run away like a gust of wind. Ji Yuqi looked at his manic back and sighed helplessly. Just as Ji Yunhan was searching for Lu Cici's whereabouts like a headless fly, Liang Yu received a message from his boss, asking him to lead Ji Yuqi and Ji Yunhan to the alley behind the bar. There must be a good show going on in the alley. The corners of Liang Yu's lips curled up. His eyes, hidden behind his glasses, quickly flashed with a glimmer of light. Liang Yu quietly approached Ji Yuqi and whispered a few words in her ear. Ji Yuqi frowned. Something flashed through her mind so quickly that she couldn't catch it. Unfortunately, she didn't have time to think about it. She ran in front of Ji Yunhan and grabbed his wrist. "Follow me." Someone saw Lu Cici go into the alley behind the bar. In the dark alley, there was only a dim street lamp. The rubbish bins by the roadside were filled with garbage. The unpleasant smell permeated the air. The sounds of wild cats meowing were particularly clear in the night. Under the street lamp, 3 figures stood tall. 2 of them were tall and thin men, and the other was a delicate woman. One of the men seemed to be impatient. He raised his arm and slapped the woman. He said angrily, "Don't play tricks with me. Where did you take Ji Yunhan?" The woman's head was slapped to the side by the slap. Even so, her proud body didn't waver. Her voice was cold, like spring water on a snowy mountain. "I've already said that I don't know. Even if you beat me to death, I still don't know." The woman's voice was very familiar. It was Lu Cici, the woman Ji Yunhan was frantically looking for. Ji Yunhan saw that his beloved was hurt. His heart felt like it was being cut by a knife. He rushed out recklessly, but Ji Yuqi grabbed his wrist. He wanted to shout, but she covered his mouth with her other hand. She whispered in his ear, "Don't worry. Wait a little longer." Ji Yunhan was like a caged beast, frantically struggling. If it was someone else who grabbed him, he would have already beaten that person up. He didn't understand why his sister stopped him from saving Cici. He even felt the pain of being betrayed by his family. Although Ji Yuqi didn't know what he was thinking, she could guess from his conflicting emotions. She sighed silently and whispered in his ear, "Ahan, believe me. Sister won't hurt you." Ji Yunhan was stunned. Yes, this was his sister, his closest sister. How could he doubt her? He was such a jerk. His emotions were complicated, but he gradually calmed down. His brain also regained its rationality. He listened to Ji Yuqi's instructions and hid in the dark to observe the situation. On the other side, the tall, skinny man wanted to slap Lu Cici again, but he was stopped by Su Zhe. "Depeng, calm down. I believe that Cici isn't lying." Su Zhe's voice was lazy, but the coldness in his voice was enough to send chills down one's spine. He took 2 steps forward and forced Lu Cici to the wall. He lowered his head, his smiling face almost touching hers. He said in a gentle voice, "Cici, you definitely won't forget the $500,000 gambling debt. You definitely won't forget that your mother needs a large sum of money to treat her illness. Am I right?" Lu Cici leaned her back against the wall. She could feel the chill in her bones spreading from her back to her body. Su Zhe's words were like a sharp knife that pierced her heart. She clenched her fists tightly and spat out a few words with much difficulty, "I haven't forgotten." Su Zhe patted her cold cheek approvingly. His voice was light and cheerful. "Good girl, you did well. I'll treat this as an accident. Next time, if such an accident happens again, you know what I'll do. Awesome novel, Songshu 566. Chapter 821. Lu Cece lowered her head, her long eyelashes trembling. She replied blankly, yes. Very good. Suja stroked her hair like a puppy and laughed softly. Continue to do what you should do, don't let that kid get suspicious. She still responded blankly, yes. The sound of footsteps gradually faded away, only Lu Cece's shadow was left under the street lamp. She lowered her head, her thin shoulders trembling slightly. Soon, a pool of liquid gathered at the place where she was standing. Ji Yuchi retracted her gaze and released the hand that was covering Ji Yunhan's mouth. Her fingers were wet, it was Ahan's tears. After knowing that Lu Cece had betrayed him, Ji Yunhan was like a mad beast, trying to break free from her imprisonment. She used all her strength to subdue him. Later, she felt hot tears falling on her fingers, drop by drop, as if they were falling on her heart. It was so painful, so painful. She hugged him and pressed his head on her shoulder, gently stroking his back, silently comforting him. She felt both pain and guilt in her heart. In fact, she had long found out that Lu Cece had a motive for getting close to Ahan, but she chose to hide it because she wanted to use this cruel method to force Ahan to grow up. Ahan, don't blame me for being selfish. I just want you to understand the dangers of the world, I just want you to understand the viciousness of Qin Tingfang and her mother. Otherwise, you will never grow up. I am not omnipotent, I can't protect you completely, so you have to learn to protect yourself. Ahan, I'm sorry, I hurt your heart. In a place where Ji Yunhan couldn't see, Ji Yuchi's eyes lit up, but it quickly disappeared, like a meteor flashing in the sky. The youth's heart had been torn to shreds. One could well imagine the pain he felt. Ji Yunhan even felt that there was no point in living anymore. He curled up in a corner like his heart had died. His eyes were lifeless as he stared at the pitch-black night sky. He didn't respond to anything around him. His whole body was emitting a deathly stillness. Ji Yuchi was heartbroken, she began to wonder if she had done something wrong. After all, Ahan was still a child, she shouldn't have forced him like this. However, she didn't regret it. If she was given another chance, she would still do the same. She didn't know how to comfort him, she could only hug him tightly, call his name over and over again, telling him that he still had his father and sister, they would never betray him, would never abandon him. Her gentle whispers had a soothing magic, he was gradually surrounded by warmth. He was like a lost child, he was lying in her arms, he was suppressing his sobs, his weak sobs, like an injured animal. It made her heart ache. It's okay, Ahan. I'm here, a while later. Ji Yunhan's fluctuating emotions finally calmed down. The self-proclaimed man was crying happily on his sister's shoulder. This knowledge made his cheeks burn, and he moved his butt back embarrassedly. His voice was awkward and dry. Sand got into my eyes just now. Ji Yuchi's eyes were smiling, what an awkward silly boy. She agreed rather seriously. I know. Ji Yunhan was amused by her serious look, but he had to hold it in. He pretended to be serious and cleared his throat. Sis, let's go home. Okay. Ji Yuchi stood up, looked down at him, and stretched out her right hand in front of him. He looked up at her. He couldn't see her face clearly in the dark night, but he could imagine her gentle smile, and scenes of when he was young surfaced in his mind. Every time he fell down naughtily, his sister would stand in front of him and hold his hand. He grinned and put his hand in hers. She held it tightly, just like when they were young, and pulled him up from the ground. Sis, Thank you. Ji Yuchi laughed softly. Silly boy. The two of them walked side by side and disappeared into the alley. Ji Yunhan hesitated for the entire journey. When the car arrived at the G family's villa, he couldn't help but ask, "Sis, did you already know?" Ji Yuqi knew what he was referring to and didn't hide it from him. Do you still remember when you and Lu Cece were surrounded by people at the casino street? At that time, I was hiding in the dark. When I saw those people attacking you, I pretended to call the police to scare them away. Ji Yunhan suddenly understood. No wonder. I was wondering why I only heard the sirens and didn't see the police. Did you play the ringtone on your phone? Ji Yuqi nodded. That's right. At that time, I noticed that Lu Cece was making eye contact with those people. At that time, I was suspicious. After that, I hired a private investigator to investigate and found out that she had been in contact with Su Zhe. As for Su Zhe, you're not unfamiliar with him. His sister is called Su Yanqing. She's Yi Shaoxian's lover. Ji Yunhan was no stranger to Yi Shaoxian. He was Chen Tingfang's ex-husband and Yi Zisu's biological father. If Ji Yunhan still couldn't figure out who was behind this, then he wouldn't be worthy of being called a genius. His handsome face was full of anger. He gritted his teeth and said fiercely, "Chen Tingfang, that old witch is too evil. I won't let her off. Han, after today's incident, you should understand that we're still too weak. We won't be able to compete with Chen Tingfang. Promise me, before you have enough power to protect yourself, don't act rashly. Sis, don't worry. I won't let you down." Ji Yunhan had experienced betrayal and emotional traps. He had matured a lot in just one night. He was no longer the reckless young man he used to be. He was a man who was patient, responsible, and strategic. Ji Yuqi reached out and patted his shoulder. Han, I didn't tell you in advance. Are you angry with me? Ji Yunhan smiled bitterly. How can I not be angry? If you had told me in advance, I wouldn't have. He paused and avoided her gaze. He said awkwardly, although I'm angry, I don't blame you. If you had told me in advance, I might not have believed you. In fact, he had liked Lu Cece for a long time. Even if his sister had said that she was a bad girl, he wouldn't have believed her. There were many things that could only be believed after experiencing it for yourself. If he hadn't experienced this incident, he wouldn't have realized that people's hearts could be so sinister. Even though he knew that Chen Tingfang and Yi Zisu weren't good people, he couldn't have imagined that they would do such a vicious thing. Although that person had lied to him and hurt him badly, he had the courage to stand up again because he wasn't alone. He had his sister and father. They would accompany him, and he had to protect them. That night, the siblings opened up to each other and untied the knot in their hearts. Their relationship was restored to how it was before, and they were even closer. When they parted ways with the siblings, Liang Yu said that he knew a friend who could help Ji Yuqi check the contents of the syringe. Ji Yuqi thought about it. Liang Yu was someone she could trust, and she didn't have any acquaintances in this area. She handed the syringe to him and asked for his help. Liang Yu was very efficient. He called the next day. "Miss Ji, the test results are out. The syringe contains a liquid drug. After taking it, it can confuse a person's mind, causing them to be in a state of extreme excitement and do some unimaginable things. After taking it twice, it can become addictive. It's very painful when it acts up, and it's very difficult to get rid of it." Ji Yuqi's head exploded, and the blood in her body quickly turned cold. Her fingers tightly gripped the phone, trying to control the roaring demon in her heart. Her eyes were wild and bloodthirsty. "Chen Tingfang, you're so ruthless. You actually want to use a woman and drugs to treat a teenager, making him step by step into depravity and death. You vicious bitch, I'll make you wish you were dead." Ji Yuqi didn't hide it from Ji Yunhan. After telling him the results of the test, he was shocked. After the shock, there was a lingering fear. If his sister hadn't come in time, he would have been played by that disgusting woman. She would have injected him with drugs and taken a video. Then, he would have completely become a plaything in the hands of that group of people. He didn't dare to imagine himself like that. After these emotions passed through, there was only anger left. Anger toward the mastermind behind the scenes. Ji-Yuchi saw his eyes full of hatred and was shocked. For revenge, it was enough for her to become a demon. She couldn't let her brother live for revenge. She held his face with both hands, looked into his eyes and smiled. Ah-han, don't let hatred blind you. You're not a machine of hatred. You're the future of the Ji family. Protect yourself and become stronger so that those people can't hurt you anymore. Ah-han, promise me that you won't dirty your hands. Leave those dirty things to me. You just have to be responsible for your safety. Sister. Ji Yunhan's throat was choked with sobs. His obsidian-like eyes surged with shattered sparkles and translucent light. To him, his sister was like a ray of sunshine that cut through the darkness and shrouded him in warmth. He thought that in his life, there would never be a woman more important than his sister. Ji-Yuchi frowned and said sternly, Ah-han, promise me. He clenched his fists and said, Okay, I promise you. I promise you that I won't dirty my hands, but it doesn't mean that I'll let those people go. Ji-Yuchi's brows relaxed. She stared at his reddened eyes and burst into laughter. Ah-han, did sand get into your eyes again? Do you want me to blow it for you? Ji Yunhan's mouth twitched. He looked away and snorted. No need. You're so long-winded. Have you entered menopause early? Ji-Yuchi laughed even louder. Ji Yunhan looked at her bright smile and couldn't help but smile. However, he quickly put on a straight face and snorted. He looked like a little brat throwing a tantrum. In the low-key and luxurious office, the huge floor-to-ceiling window was covered by a white veil. The cool spring breeze blew in through the open gap, and the soft sunlight dyed the man behind the desk with a dreamy golden color. His perfect facial features were pure and holy. His slender fingers gently tapped on the desk, and his deep eyes fell on the huge LCD screen on the wall. Although there was no expression on his handsome face, Liang Yu, who was on the other end of the screen, felt an inexplicable sense of majesty. Liang Yu coughed and put on a serious expression. He reported what he had reported to Ji-Yuchi to Shinjia. Finally, he said, that's all. Young master, do you think we should deal with the Black Flame sect? The Black Flame sect was a medium-sized sect in Ing City. It wasn't considered big, but it wasn't small either. The current leader was called Su Bingkuan. He had a daughter and a son. The daughter was called Su Yanqing and she was Yi Zhaoxian's current lover. The son, Su Zhe, was the next leader of the Black Flame sect. Although he looked gentle and refined, he was actually a wolf in sheep's clothing. Come and see. Hongcha 866. Chapter 822. Of course, Liang Yu did not ask this because he wanted to help the people, but because he was trying to figure out what Shinja was thinking. He guessed that Shinja would help Ji-Yuchi in secret. But he guessed wrong this time. Shinja's eyes were calm without any ripples. His voice was clear and cold, just like a high and mighty god. No need. The Black Flame sect will be handed over to Chi-Chi for her to practice. Ah Zay, send 2 people to protect Chi-Chi in secret. His gaze fell on Ah Zay, who was standing in the corner like a block of wood. His cold gaze startled him. If she is hurt in the slightest, punish her according to the gang's rules. A crack appeared on Ah Zay's wooden face. Although he said yes, his heart was bleeding and crying. Young master, you've become bad. For that woman, you're going to use the gang's punishment. Sob 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 sob. Ji Yunhan pretended not to know that Lu Cece had lied to him. The next morning, he rode his bicycle to pick her up to school as usual. Lu Cece's eyes flashed when she saw him. She asked tentatively, Ah Han, where did you go last night? After I delivered the wine to the guests, I couldn't find you. I called you but you didn't answer. Did something happen? Although Ji Yunhan pretended that nothing had happened on the surface, she was, after all, the girl he liked. How could he not feel uncomfortable in his heart? Faced with her hypocritical concern, that kind of discomfort was magnified several times. His fingers dug into his palms to control himself from revealing any flaws. Ahun. He did not speak. Lu Sisi panicked. Did he find out something? Ji Yunhan's deep gaze focused on her. He suppressed many of his complicated emotions. Finally, he pulled the corner of his lips and revealed a smile. I was drinking with a few friends last night and accidentally got drunk. When I woke up, I found that I was already home. It was already early in the morning. I was afraid to wake you up, so I didn't call to tell you. I'm sorry for making you worry. Lu Sisi's face bloomed into two bright smiles. It's good that you're okay. Oh right, how did you get home? Ji Yunhan held his forehead with one hand and thought for a while. Then, he frowned and shook his head. I can't remember. In a daze, I think someone got me into a car, or maybe I stopped a taxi myself. I really can't remember. It's okay. If you can't remember, then don't think about it. Ahun, it's getting late. Let's hurry to school. Although Lu Sisi was smart, she was still young and inexperienced. She couldn't see the complicated emotions hidden deep in Ji Yunhan's eyes. She still got along with him as usual. On the same day, Ji Yunhan sent Lu Sisi to work at the bar. He sat quietly in a corner with fewer people around. On the surface, he looked quiet and harmless, but in reality, his eyes flashed with the light of prey. He quietly searched for Su Jie and his two subordinates. Unfortunately, the three of them did not appear for the entire night. Perhaps, they were also secretly observing him, trying to find out who had saved him last night. Ji Yunhan used the action of drinking coffee to hide the sneer on his lips. After waiting for 3 nights, his prey had finally appeared. Su Jie saw him and revealed a happy expression. Little brother Ji, I didn't expect to see you again. We had a good chat the last time. I didn't expect you to suddenly feel dizzy and want to go home. What a disappointment. Ji Yunhan laughed heartily. Brother Su, it's my fault. I want to treat you to a drink as an apology. I don't know if the 3 of you would like to do me the honor. The blonde and peach blossom eyes were Su Jie's subordinates. They looked at Su Jie subconsciously. Su Jie laughed loudly. Sure, but you don't know how to drink. I can't bear the accusation of teaching a minor bad things. Ji Yunhan's handsome face flushed uncomfortably. He puffed up his cheeks and said with conviction, I'm already 16 years old. I'm considered an adult. Don't look down on me because I'm young. I can drink a lot. Brother Su, do you dare to drink with me? Su Jie smiled meaningfully. Why wouldn't I dare? If you can't outdrink me, you're not allowed to cry. Ji Yunhan's face turned red. He thickened his neck and said loudly, You're looking down on me. Let's see if you can still make fun of me after I drink you to the ground. After saying that, he waved his hand heroically. The bartender brought over a dozen beers and placed them on their table. Ji Yunhan took the lead and picked up the bottle cap. As he opened the bottle cap, he boasted without blushing, Just you wait. See if I don't drink all of you to the ground. The blonde and peach blossom eyes sneered, provoking Ji Yunhan at the right time. Alright, let's see what you're capable of. Su Jie looked at Ji Yunhan's action of opening the beer bottle with a faint smile. This kid was clumsy and had almost knocked over the beer bottle several times. It was obvious that he wasn't the type to drink. It would be better if he passed out after drinking so much, lest they drugged him again. Come on, 1 bottle each, let's drink more. Ji Yunhan handed the beer bottles to the three of them and took one for himself. He tilted his head back and gulped it down. Suja sighed and gave a signal to the blonde and the peach blossom eyes. The three of them also raised their heads and drank. Suja sighed and sighed. As Suja expected, the first one to collapse was Ji Yunhan. He was lying on the table in a daze, singing nursery rhymes and shouting, "Become Ultraman." He was drunk. Suja and the other two weren't any better. Their eyes were blurry and their legs were weak, but their minds were still clear. Suja patted the shoulders of his subordinates and motioned for them to take Ji Yunhan away. "Come, little monster, let's continue to drink." Ji Yunhan was carried on Yellowhair's shoulder. He swayed and shook his head as he staggered forward. Yellowhair felt as if his head was about to explode. He was already feeling dizzy. Now, he was being dragged and thrown to the ground by this little ancestor. He wished he could throw this little ancestor into the alley. "Brat, if you continue to fool around, I'll break your arm." The yellow-haired man cursed as he dragged Ji Yunhan forward. Suddenly, he felt his vision darken and he fell to the ground with a plop. He had thrown himself forward with too much force and dragged Ji Yunhan to the ground. "Blonde, what the hell are you doing?" Suja was very dizzy. He took a few steps forward and fell to the ground. The last one with the peach blossom eyes wanted to help Suja up, but his body tilted and he fell to the ground. 3 seconds passed. The 4 people lying paralyzed on the ground were motionless. Suddenly, Ji Yunhan slowly stood up from Huang Mao's back. His pair of dark, cold eyes swept over the 3 people on the ground. He didn't look drunk at all. He was clearly sober. His handsome face looked strange under the dim light. He kicked Suja and the other 2 people, but they didn't move. They were like dead dogs. He sneered. He had added drugs in their beer when he opened the beer bottle. It would be strange if they didn't pass out. He picked up a wooden stick from the roadside and raised it high above Suja's head. Ji Yunhan gritted his teeth and his eyes were filled with a fierce light. He forcefully swung the wooden stick downwards. Just as it was about to land on Suja's head, a sudden force appeared and grabbed the end of the wooden stick tightly, preventing him from swinging it downwards. "Who is it?" He looked back warily. When he saw the person behind him, his pupils constricted and he stammered, "Sister. Why are you here?" Ji Yuchi snatched the wooden stick from his hand and threw it aside. Her delicate and beautiful face was as cold as ice. Her voice was bone-chilling. "Ji Yunhan, what did you promise me?" Just a second ago, Ji Yunhan had been like a demon with a murderous aura all over his body. In the blink of an eye, he had turned into a helpless big white rabbit. He frantically explained, "Sis, I just wanted to teach them a lesson. I won't take their lives. Really, I won't lie to you." Ji Yuchi stared at him expressionlessly. Her dark eyes were as deep as the ocean, mysterious and dangerous. She took a step forward and her oppressive aura surged towards Ji Yunhan. Her voice was filled with suppressed anger. "Teach them a lesson. You're with them. If something happens to them, you'll be the biggest suspect. Do you think they're not ruthless enough to deal with you?" Ji Yunhan shrunk his neck and laughed dryly. Hee, sister, I've already planned for your smart brother. I've drugged their wine. Under the influence of the drug, they'll forget what happened after they got drunk. I'll beat them up and stuff a wooden stick in the hands of the blonde and Suja. I'll create the illusion that they're fighting amongst themselves after they got drunk. After that, I'll use the trick of injuring myself and pretend that I'm injured too. They won't suspect me. Deep down, Ji Yuchi felt that his method was feasible, but there was always a possibility. What if Suja and the others suspected Ahan and intensified their attacks on him, or even endangered his life? What should she do? She wouldn't allow any danger to exist. She was silent for 2 seconds. "Ah Han, you should go home first. I'll take care of the rest." Ji Yunhan's expression changed and he said anxiously, "Sister, I don't want you to help me. You can't dirty your hands." Ji Yuqi laughed softly, "Silly, of course I won't dirty my hands. Don't worry, I've already planned it out." Ji Yunhan still wanted to say something, but Ji Yuqi covered his mouth. She looked at him sternly and said, "That's enough. Hurry up and go home. If you don't leave now, I'll be angry." Ji Yunhan had no choice but to leave dejectedly. Ji Yuqi glanced at the 3 people lying on the ground. She smirked and there was an indescribable coldness in her eyes. A good show was about to begin. "Hey, wake up, you stinky man. Wake up." A woman squatted in front of Suzhia and slapped his cheeks hard. Suzhia was in a daze when he felt someone slapping his face. After a while, he felt a burning pain on his face. Damn it, if he caught the person who slapped him, he would definitely dismember his arm. He opened his eyes abruptly and glared fiercely at the person in front of him. Soon, his expression changed and the muscles on his face twitched uncontrollably. F***ck, what kind of creature was this? Her eyebrows were thick and black and her mouth was painted blood red. It was as if she had just sucked blood. The thick layer of powder on her face was still falling down. Coupled with her curly hair, was she really a woman? F***ck, her chest was bulging. She was indeed a woman. This woman's taste was terrible. Suzhia averted his gaze. He couldn't bear to look at the horrifying face. He glanced at the ground. His subordinates were still unconscious and Ji Yunhan was nowhere to be seen. Could it be that he had been rescued by the mysterious person again? Hundreds of thoughts flashed through his mind, but his face remained cold. "Who are you? Why are you here?" Welfare, Songshu 566.